I never expected my umbrella to come back to me. That's the thing about kindness in a city like Chicago. You let it go the moment you offer it. You don't expect returns. You don't keep receipts. 3 days after I handed that stranger my beaten-up umbrella outside the Clark Street subway, watching him disappear into sheets of rain with blood I pretended not to see on his knuckles, I'd already written it off as one of those small sacrifices you make when your heart is softer than your common sense. But Vincent Moretti wasn't the kind of man who forgot debts. I learned that on a Thursday morning when I arrived at the Ashland Gallery 20 minutes early, keys still cold in my palm, and found him waiting in the center of the main exhibition hall like a piece of art I hadn't curated. The rain was long gone. So was the vulnerability I'd glimpsed that night. In its place stood a man in a charcoal suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor, hands clasped behind his back, studying the Rothko I'd spent 6 months acquiring. He didn't turn when I entered. He didn't need to. You will feel so many emotions in this mysterious love story I'm about to tell. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel, Mrs. Brennan, he said, my name shaped carefully in his mouth like he'd practiced it. I hope I'm not too early. My heart did something complicated. Recognition and alarm, tangled together. We don't open until 10. I managed, setting my bag down too loudly on the reception desk. And I don't remember scheduling any private viewings. You didn't, he said, finally turning to face me. I scheduled it myself, after I purchased this. He gestured to the Rothko, $17,000, our most expensive piece. I'd had 3 serious inquiries in 2 months, none successful. I started, but the word came out wrong, so I tried again. When? This morning. Wire transfer. Your director was very accommodating. Of course Gerald was. Gerald would sell his own mother for a commission like that. Vincent Moretti moved toward me with the kind of grace that made me think of predators, the ones who never rush because they know their prey has nowhere to go. He was taller than I remembered. Or maybe the subway entrance had made us both smaller, caught in that rain-soaked moment of strange, suspended equality. I have one condition, he continued. I want you to deliver it. Personally, that's not really how I know how you operate, Mr. Brennan. I'm asking for an exception. The lights overhead hummed. Outside, traffic growled past on Ashland Avenue. Inside, the gallery felt suddenly too quiet, too small. I noticed things I hadn't that night. The way his jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. The silver threaded through his dark hair at the temples. The slight asymmetry of his face that suggested violence survived rather than avoided. And the sunglasses. Indoors. In a gallery lit like a funeral home. I don't think that's appropriate, I said, finding my professional voice. The one I used with difficult collectors and men who stood too close. But I can arrange for our courier service to... He reached into his jacket. I flinched, hated myself for flinching. What he pulled out wasn't a weapon. It was my umbrella, the cheap navy one from Target. The one with the broken spoke that made it list to the left when the wind picked up. Except now it looked restored, the fabric taut and new, the handle polished to a gleam. He set it on the desk between us with the reverence other men reserved for contracts. You gave me shelter when no one else would, he said quietly. Let me return the favor. Something in his voice made my throat tight. Some quality of truth that felt rare and costly. I reached for the umbrella. My fingers brushed the handle. That's when I saw it, a ring, platinum and diamond, tied to the grip with a black silk ribbon. Small, delicate, worth more than I made in 6 months. I jerked my hand back. I can't accept that. It's not a gift. It's payment. For a $5 umbrella, for 5 minutes of humanity. The way he said it made me look at him. Really look at him. Past the suit and the sunglasses and the controlled stillness that marked him as dangerous, I saw exhaustion. The kind that lives in bones. The kind that comes from fighting wars no one else can see. Who are you? I asked. Though some part of me already knew. Some part of me had known that night, watching blood drip from his knuckles onto rain-slicked concrete. Someone who pays his debts, he answered, which wasn't an answer at all. I untied the ring, held it up to the light. It caught the gallery floods and scattered them across the white walls like accusations. This is too much. That's not for you to decide. Then I'm deciding anyway. I placed the ring in his palm. His hand was warm, steadier than mine. For a moment we stood there, connected by platinum and pride. And I understood with sudden clarity that this man was used to people taking what he offered. That my refusal was its own kind of violence. "Keep the umbrella," I said, pulling away. "Consider us even." I turned before he could respond. Walked to my office with my spine straight and my hands shaking. I didn't look back. I wouldn't let myself look back. But I felt his eyes following me across the gallery floor. Felt the weight of his attention like a hand between my shoulder blades. I made it to my desk before I realized my mistake. My phone number. I'd written it inside the umbrella's tag 2 years ago, back when I was constantly losing things and optimistically believed strangers would return them. Back when I thought small kindnesses were simple, uncomplicated things. The morning passed in a blur of emails and catalog updates. I rescheduled the Rothko delivery, confirmed the wire transfer, avoided Gerald's knowing looks and questions about the gentleman who specifically requested you. By noon, I'd almost convinced myself the encounter was over. A strange footnote to a strange night. Nothing more. Then evening came. I left the gallery at 7:30, later than usual, the September sky already dark and heavy with the promise of more rain. My car was parked 2 blocks away, on a side street where meter rates were reasonable and break-ins were only occasional. I had my keys out, my phone in my other hand, my awareness split between podcasts and peripheral vision the way every woman learns to navigate a city alone. The black car idling across from mine didn't register as threat, not immediately, not until the driver stepped out. He was big, not tall, but built like he'd been constructed rather than born, all shoulders and silence. He wore a suit. They always wore suits. He held a garment bag, the kind that holds expensive dresses you don't wrinkle. "Ms. Brennan," he said. Not a question. I stopped walking. My thumb found the emergency button on my phone without looking. "I don't know you," I said. "No, ma'am, but Mr. Moretti asked me to deliver this." He held out the garment bag like an offering, like a threat. In this city, I'd learned, they were often the same thing. "I don't want it." He anticipated that. The driver said. And something in his voice suggested amusement, the kind that doesn't reach the face. He said to tell you, "It's not a gift, it's an invitation." To what? Dinner, tomorrow, 8 p.m. He set the garment bag on the hood of my car, gentle as a prayer. Then he reached into his jacket, I tensed, and pulled out a small envelope. Cream-colored, expensive, my name written across it in handwriting that looked like it had been taught by nuns with rulers. The driver placed it on top of the garment bag, stepped back, nodded once. "Have a good evening, ma'am," he said. Then he was gone. Back in the black car, gone into traffic like smoke. I stood there on that empty side street with my heart trying to escape my chest. Stood there until the cold made me move. I grabbed the garment bag and envelope, threw them in my backseat, drove home with my hands too tight on the wheel and my mind too loud with questions. My apartment was small. 3rd floor walk-up in Logan Square. Cheap rent and cheaper locks. I made it inside, locked the deadbolt. The chain. Stood with my back against the door until my breathing slowed. The garment bag lay across my couch like accusation. I opened it. The dress was midnight blue. Silk. Simple and devastating in the way expensive things are when they don't need to announce themselves. My size exactly. No tag, no label, just perfection. The envelope held a card. Heavy stock. His handwriting looked like violence restrained. "Dinner, tomorrow, 8 p.m. From now on, no one touches you but me." I read it 3 times. The first time, I felt anger. The second time, confusion. The third time, something worse. Something that felt like the moment before you step off a ledge, when you're weightless and falling hasn't started yet, but you know it's coming and you can't remember why you ever thought you could fly. I called the gallery. Gerald answered. "Did you give anyone my personal information?" "What? No? Raina, what's..." I hung up. I looked at the dress, the card, the ring I'd refused but couldn't quite forget. From now on, no one touches you but me. Not a request. A declaration. I walked to my window, looked down at the street. The black car was there, parked, waiting. The driver sat behind the wheel, patient as death, and when he saw me looking, he didn't wave or acknowledge me at all. He just watched, and I understood with cold, perfect clarity that something had begun. Something that started with an umbrella and rain and kindness I couldn't take back. Something that had nothing to do with choice and everything to do with debt and danger and the terrifying truth that Vincent Moretti, whoever he really was, had decided I was his to protect. Whether I wanted protection or not, I didn't go to dinner. I want to be clear about that. I made a choice. At 7:55 p.m. on Friday night, I stood in my bathroom wearing jeans and an old Northwestern sweatshirt, staring at the midnight blue dress still hanging on the back of my door, and I chose independence over curiosity, safety over whatever Vincent Moretti was offering with his careful handwriting and his impossible promises. The dress stayed on its hanger. I stayed home. I ordered Thai food, watched half a movie, ignored my phone when it buzzed at 8:15 with a number I didn't recognize, went to bed at 10 feeling proud and stubborn, and only slightly afraid of consequences I couldn't yet name. Saturday morning, my landlord knocked on my door. Mr. Kowalski was 73 and kind in the distracted way of men who'd outlived their wives and couldn't quite remember how to talk to women anymore. He stood in my doorway holding a receipt, his expression caught between confusion and something that might have been awe. "Reina," he said, my name heavy with his Polish accent. "I think there's been mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "Your rent is paid." I blinked. "I know. I paid it on the 1st. No, is paid for 6 months. Through March." The Thai food from last night turned to stone in my stomach. "That's not possible." "Is here," he insisted, waving the receipt. "Wire transfer. Yesterday morning. Your name on account." I took the paper from him with hands that had forgotten how to stay steady. The amount was correct. The date was yesterday. The originating account was a series of numbers that meant nothing to me and everything at once. "Mr. Kowalski," I said carefully, "I didn't authorize this, but is your name—" Someone made a mistake. A big one. "I need you to return it." He looked at me like I'd suggested returning winning lottery tickets. "Return? But Reina is already processed. Is done. Then unprocess it." I don't know how to figure it out," I said, and closed the door with more force than I intended. I stood there breathing too fast, staring at the receipt, understanding dawning like nausea. This was the favor returned. The shelter repaid. Vincent Moretti buying pieces of my life I hadn't offered for sale. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your car is fixed. It's parked where you left it." I grabbed my keys, ran down 3 flights of stairs, burst onto the street where my 12-year-old Honda had sat dying for a week, victim of a timing belt I couldn't afford to replace, except it wasn't my Honda. Same parking space, different car, a slate gray Accord, new, maybe 2 years old, practical, unremarkable, the kind of car designed not to be noticed. Keys on the front tire, exactly where I always hid mine. I stood on the sidewalk in my sweatshirt and bare feet, and something in me cracked, not broke, cracked, like ice before it shatters. I called the number that had texted me. He answered on the first ring. "Miss Brennan," Vincent said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, the satisfaction of a man who'd predicted every move I'd make. "I trust you slept well. Take it back," I said. My voice shook. I hated that it shook. All of it. The rent, the car, whatever else you think you're doing. I can't take back money already spent, and the car isn't yours. It's registered to my company. Think of it as a loan. I don't want your loans. I don't want anything from you. You wanted to be left alone," he said quietly. "You didn't show up last night. I respected that choice. This isn't respect. This is protection." The word landed between us like a body. I don't need protection. Everyone needs protection, Reina. Most people just don't know it yet. The way he said my name made my skin feel too tight, like he'd earned the right to use it. Like that night in the rain had given him access to things I hadn't meant to share. "From what?" I demanded. "From who? You keep talking like I'm in danger, but you won't tell me." "Meet me for coffee," he interrupted. 1 hour, Millennium Park, by the Bean, public place, daylight. You can leave whenever you want. "No." "Reina." "Stop saying my name like that." Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, "Like what?" "Like it matters," I thought. "Like I matter. I'm not playing whatever game this is. I said instead. "It's not a game," Vincent replied, and something in his voice changed, sharpened. "But if you want to keep pretending it is, that's your choice. Just know that ignorance isn't innocence. It's just another way of getting hurt." He ended the call. I stood there holding my phone, barefoot on cold concrete, staring at a car I hadn't asked for, living in an apartment paid for by a man who wore sunglasses indoors and spoke about danger like other people spoke about weather. I should have gone back inside, should have called the police, a lawyer, someone with authority to make this stop. Instead, I got dressed, put on real shoes, drove the car I didn't own to Millennium Park because I needed to look him in the face and understand what I'd stumbled into 3 nights ago when I'd handed over a $5 umbrella like kindness was simple and safe and consequence-free. He was waiting by the bean when I arrived, standing apart from the clusters of tourists photographing their distorted reflections. He wore jeans today, a black sweater, still the sunglasses, always the sunglasses. He saw me and didn't wave or smile or make any gesture of acknowledgement, just watched me approach with that stillness that made him seem more statue than man. "You came," he said when I stopped 3 feet away, maintaining careful distance. "I came to tell you to stop, and yet you drove the car. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice, Reina. You just don't always like the options." A tour group flowed around us, their guide explaining the bean's official name, its architect, its cultural significance. Vincent waited until they passed. Then he gestured to a bench away from the crowd. "Walk with me." "I'm fine here." "No," he said simply. "You're not." Something in his voice made me follow him. Some quality of certainty that suggested he knew things about my safety I hadn't learned yet. We sat. The September sun was warm, but the bench was cold. Around us, Chicago went about its Saturday business. Runners and strollers and people who believed the world was predictable and manageable and fair. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached up and removed his sunglasses. I'd wondered. Of course I'd wondered. What he was hiding. What made a man wear darkness even in light? His left eye was ruined. Not blind. I could see the iris. Pale blue ringed with gray. But scarred. The lid didn't close completely. The white was webbed with red. And the skin around it was marked with what looked like burn tissue. Old and healed but permanent. 3 months ago, he said, his voice carefully empty. Someone tried to kill me, came very close to succeeding. I was on the ground, bleeding, alone. It was raining. I couldn't see, couldn't move. I thought I was dying in a puddle outside a subway station where no one knew my name. He looked at me then. Really looked at me with both eyes, the damaged and the whole. And then you appeared. Like something I'd imagined. Like mercy I didn't deserve. You didn't ask who I was or what I'd done. You just saw someone who needed shelter. So you gave it. My throat felt tight. That's just kindness, he finished. I know. That's my point. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How dangerous? Dangerous? People like me, Vincent continued, replacing his sunglasses with steady hands. We survive by being cautious, by trusting no one, by assuming everyone wants something. And then someone like you does something like that, and it changes the calculation. I don't understand. You kept me alive that night, Rena, whether you knew it or not. And now someone knows you did. Someone saw. The park suddenly felt too big, too exposed. The tourists too close, the sky too open. Saw what? Instead of answering, Vincent pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo, handed it to me. It was me, walking home from the gallery 2 days ago. The angle suggested someone across the street using a telephoto lens. My face was clear, my path obvious, the intent unmistakable. Who took this? I whispered. I don't know yet, but they sent it to me. With a message. What message? Vincent took the phone back. His jaw was tight. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled, the kind of control that suggested rage held by force. Pretty things break easily in this city. The world tilted. I grabbed the bench to steady myself. Around us, people laughed and posed for pictures and lived in a version of Chicago where strangers didn't photograph you as warning. I want to go home, I said. You can't. Not safely. Then what am I supposed to do? Vincent stood, offered his hand. I didn't take it. You're supposed to let me help you, he said. The way you helped me. By taking over my life? By keeping you alive long enough to live it. I stood without his help. Faced him with my arms crossed, my defenses up. My pride the only thing keeping me from screaming or crying or both. I don't even know who you are, I said. Not really. No, he agreed. You don't? So tell me. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he said, I run things. In this city, things that operate in spaces the law doesn't reach. I'm very good at it. I'm also very careful. I don't have friends. I don't have liabilities. I certainly don't have debts. Until you... I don't want to be your debt. Too late, Vincent said simply. You already are. And whoever took that photo knows it. Which means you're not just in danger, Reina. You're a message. A way to hurt me by hurting something I value. You don't even know me. I know enough. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number, not Vincent's. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A photo. Me. Right now. Sitting on this bench. Taken from somewhere in the crowd behind us. Below it, a text. You were chosen as a message. Vincent saw my face change. Saw the fear I couldn't hide fast enough. He took my phone with gentle efficiency, looked at the screen, and something in his expression went cold and distant and terrifying. We're leaving, he said. Now. Where? Somewhere safe. I don't... Reina, he said. And this time my name wasn't careful or calculated. It was urgent. Real. Please, trust me. Just for today. Just until I understand what this is. I looked around the park. Tourists, families, normal people living normal lives. And somewhere among them, someone with a camera and a threat, and the ability to make me vanish into the kind of danger I'd only read about. I thought about my sister, Lena, dead 5 years now in a car crash that never quite made sense. The way the police had been so quick to close the case. The way her editor had stopped returning my calls. The way I'd learned too young that sometimes the world is darker than it looks, and justice is quieter than grief. Just for today, I said finally. Vincent's shoulders dropped slightly. Relief, maybe, or just the release of held breath. Just for today, he agreed. But we both knew he was lying. The warehouse didn't look like safety. It looked like the kind of place bodies got dumped in crime dramas. Industrial, isolated, pressed against the Chicago River where the water ran dark and the buildings had forgotten their original purposes. Vincent drove us there in silence, his jaw tight, his hands steady on the wheel in a way that made me think he'd driven away from danger so many times it had become muscle memory. I sat in the passenger seat of the car I didn't own and watched the city change around us. The tourists and coffee shops giving way to loading docks and chain-link fences. The architecture of commerce replaced by the architecture of things people didn't want to see. This is where you feel safe, I asked when he finally pulled through a gate that opened automatically, as if the fence itself recognized him. This is where I control the variables, Vincent said, which wasn't the same thing at all. Inside, the warehouse was nothing like I expected. The exterior promised decay. The interior delivered something else entirely. A space transformed by money and taste into something between a loft and a fortress. Exposed brick walls, yes, but restored and sealed. Concrete floors heated from beneath, 20-foot ceilings with industrial lights that could have been art installations. And along one entire wall, screens, dozens of them, showing streets and buildings and angles of the city I recognized and some I didn't. What is this? I breathed. My real home, Vincent said, shrugging off his jacket. Underneath, he wore a shoulder holster. I'd suspected. Seeing it made it real. The penthouse is for meetings. This is where I actually live. He walked to a panel by the door, pressed his palm to it. Locks engaged with sounds like bones breaking. Multiple deadbolts, electronic systems, the kind of security that suggested paranoia or experience or both. You can't leave without the code, he said, watching my face. I'm telling you that because I don't want you to feel trapped. You're not a prisoner, but you are protected. There's a difference. Is there? He didn't answer, just moved deeper into the space, and after a moment I followed because standing by the locked door felt like admitting defeat. The warehouse was larger than it looked. What seemed like one open space was actually several: living area, kitchen, office, and something that looked like a command center. All the screens focused there. Keyboards and equipment I didn't recognize. Vincent went straight to the monitors, his fingers moving across keys with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Tell me again," he said, pulling up the photo from the park. "Exactly when you got this text. Right before you saw it. Maybe 30 seconds. His jaw tightened. He typed something. Camera feeds shifted and multiplied. I watched him work with a focus so complete I might as well have been invisible. This was Vincent Moretti without the careful control, without the measured words and deliberate movements. This was him doing what he actually did, hunting threats in data streams and surveillance feeds like other men hunted through files. "There," he said finally, freezing a frame. On one of the screens, an image crystallized. The park, the bench where we'd sat. And in the background, partially obscured by tourists, a man with a camera. His face turned away, his body language suggesting he belonged there. Just another person capturing Chicago's most photographed sculpture. Except Vincent zoomed in, enhanced. And I saw what made him different. The camera was aimed wrong. Not at the bean. At us. "Do you recognize him?" Vincent asked. I studied the screen. The man was average height, average build, wearing clothes designed not to be remembered. His face was mostly hidden by a baseball cap and the angle. "No," I said. "Should I?" Vincent didn't answer. He was already pulling up more feeds, tracking the man backward through time and space. I watched him appear on different cameras, always at a distance, always watching. Outside the gallery 3 days ago, near my apartment building. At the coffee shop where I got my morning espresso. "How long has he been following me?" I whispered. "At least a week," Vincent said, his voice flat. "Maybe longer." The warehouse suddenly felt too small. My lungs couldn't find enough air. I sat down on the nearest piece of furniture, a leather couch that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and put my head between my knees because the room was tilting and I couldn't make it stop. Vincent was beside me instantly, not touching, just present, close enough that I could hear him breathing, steady and controlled. "You're safe here," he said quietly. Am I? Or am I just in a different kind of danger? Both, he admitted. But at least this danger I understand. I looked up at him. He'd removed the sunglasses again. The ruined eye caught the light from the monitors, making it look silver and strange. "Why me?" I asked. "If this is about you, about hurting you, why choose me? I'm nobody. I manage a gallery. I live in a walk-up. I eat cereal for dinner. I'm not... You're the only person in 3 years who's done something kind for me without wanting anything in return." Vincent interrupted. "That makes you rare, and rare things get noticed." "By who?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he stood, walked to a cabinet I hadn't noticed, pulled out a bottle of whiskey that looked older than me, poured 2 glasses without asking if I wanted one. "I'm going to tell you something," he said, handing me the glass. "And after I tell you, you're going to want to leave. You're going to want to call the police or run or pretend this conversation never happened. But you can't, not anymore. So I need you to drink this, and I need you to listen, and I need you to understand that everything I'm about to say is true, whether you believe it or not." I took the glass. My hands were shaking. I drank. The whiskey burned like honesty. "Tell me," I said. So he did. Vincent Moretti ran the West Side, not officially, not in any way that would show up in public records or tax documents, but in the ways that mattered, the ways that moved money and power and violence through channels the city pretended didn't exist. He controlled territory from the river to the suburbs. Protection, distribution, information. The infrastructure of organized crime operating parallel to legitimate business, sometimes touching it, sometimes indistinguishable from it. He told me this standing by the windows overlooking the river, his voice matter of fact, like he was describing a job at a bank instead of admitting to being exactly what I'd suspected and hoped he wasn't. "I don't kill civilians," he said. "I don't deal in certain substances. I don't hurt women or children. I have rules. They're not the law's rules, but they're mine, and I enforce them. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No," he said simply. It's supposed to make you understand who I am, what I am, so you know what kind of protection you're accepting. I stood. The whiskey was making me brave or stupid or both. I didn't accept anything. You decided. You moved into my life like you had the right. And now you're telling me I should be grateful because at least you're an ethical criminal. I'm telling you, Vincent said, turning to face me fully, that 3 months ago, someone tried to kill me. Came close. I still don't know who ordered it. I have suspicions, but no proof. And while I'm trying to find proof, they're escalating, looking for leverage, looking for weaknesses. And they found one. Me. You. I wanted to throw the glass, wanted to scream, wanted to rewind time to a rainy night when I should have kept walking, should have let some dangerous man bleed out on the sidewalk because kindness in this city was a liability I couldn't afford. Instead, I said, "My sister died 5 years ago. Car accident, single vehicle. She lost control on Lakeshore Drive, went into the barrier. They said it was instantaneous. They said she didn't suffer." Vincent went very still. "Her name was Lena Brennan," I continued. "She was a journalist, investigative. She was working on something. I don't know what. She wouldn't tell me. Said it was safer if I didn't know. And then she was dead, and everyone said it was an accident. And I tried to believe them because the alternative was I couldn't finish. Couldn't say out loud what I'd suspected for 5 years, but had been too afraid to investigate." "You think it wasn't an accident?" Vincent said. "Not a question. I think my sister knew how to drive in snow. I think she was careful. I think the week before she died, she came to my apartment at 3 in the morning and asked me to hold on to something for her. A flash drive. And I said no. I said I didn't want to be involved in whatever she was working on. I said..." My voice broke. 5 years of guilt breaking with it. I said she was being paranoid, that she was seeing conspiracies where there were just coincidences. And then she left, and then she died. And I've spent every day since wondering if I killed her by saying no. The warehouse was silent, except for the hum of electronics and the distant sound of the river. Vincent crossed the space between us, sat down beside me, didn't touch me, but sat close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "What was on the flash drive?" he asked quietly. "I don't know. She never told me. I never saw it again. But you think it's connected to her death. To this? I don't know what I think anymore," I said, and realized I was crying. When had I started crying? I just know that I tried to be good. I tried to be small and safe and uninvolved. And it didn't matter. She died anyway. And now someone's following me and you're telling me kindness is dangerous, and I don't. I don't know how to live in a world where helping someone makes you a target. Vincent was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The night you found me, I wasn't just bleeding. I was dying. I knew it, could feel it. And I remember thinking, this is how it ends. Alone, in the rain, unmourned. Because I'd spent my whole life making sure no one could get close enough to mourn me. And then you appeared, and you didn't see Vincent Moretti. You saw someone who needed help. That's rare, Raina. That's valuable. And in my world, valuable things don't stay safe. They get claimed or destroyed. Those are the only options. Then unclaim me." I said, "I can't, even if I wanted to. You're already marked, already noticed. The only question now is whether you survive it." I looked at him, his ruined eye, his careful hands, the way he sat close but not touching, giving me proximity without pressure. "And if I don't want your protection, then you die," he said simply. "Maybe tonight, maybe next week, but you die. Because whoever is targeting you through me doesn't care about your preferences. They care about hurting me. And the only way I stay alive in this world is by protecting what's mine. I'm not yours." "Not yet," he agreed, "but you will be. Because you're smart enough to choose survival over pride." The presumption of it should have made me furious. Instead, it made me exhausted. I slumped back into the couch and closed my eyes and felt the weight of every choice I'd ever made pressing down on my chest. "I need to sleep," I said finally. "There's a bedroom upstairs, bathroom attached. Everything you need. Will you lock me in?" "No," Vincent said. "But I will watch the doors. And if you try to leave, I'll stop you. Not because you're a prisoner, Because you're under my protection whether you want to be or not. I should have argued. Should have fought. Should have maintained the illusion that I had any control left. Instead, I just nodded. Stood. Let him show me to a room with a bed that looked like a cloud and windows that showed the river running dark and endless. "Reina," he said at the door. I turned. I meant what I said. No one touches you. That's not negotiable. That's not conditional. You're safe here. I promise you that. Why do you care? I asked. Really? You keep saying debt and obligation, but that doesn't explain this. So why? Vincent was quiet. Then he reached up and touched his ruined eye. The gesture unconscious and intimate. Because you looked at this, he said quietly, and you didn't flinch. Most people flinch, even my own people. They see damage and they assume weakness. But you just saw someone who needed shelter. And I haven't been seen like that in... He stopped, shook his head. Sleep, he said. We'll talk more in the morning. He closed the door. I heard his footsteps recede, heard the distant sound of keyboards and monitors and a man doing whatever men like him did to hunt threats in the dark. I lay down on the bed without undressing, stared at the ceiling, thought about Lena and flash drives and car accidents that maybe weren't accidents at all. Thought about Vincent Moretti and the way he'd said what's mine like it was both threat and promise. I was drifting toward sleep when my phone buzzed. I'd almost forgotten I still had it. A photo loaded slowly on the screen. At first I couldn't make sense of it. Too grainy, too dark, the angle wrong. Then my eyes adjusted and my brain assembled the pieces and I understood what I was looking at. My sister, Lena, 5 years ago, but not alone. She was shaking hands with someone, a man whose face was blurred deliberately, pixelated beyond recognition. They were standing outside a building I didn't recognize. She looked scared. He looked powerful. Below the photo, a text. Ask him who she was meeting. Ask him what he knows. Ask him why he really wants you. I stared at the phone until my eyes burned. Then I got up, walked downstairs, found Vincent exactly where I'd left him, surrounded by screens, hunting threats. He looked up when I entered, saw my face, stood immediately. What happened? I showed him the phone. Watched his expression change from concern to something colder, harder. Where did you get this? He asked quietly. Someone sent it. Just now. The same number as before. Vincent took the phone, studied the image with an intensity that made the air feel thin. Do you recognize that building? I asked. He didn't answer. Vincent, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Do you know where that is? Finally, he looked at me. His good eye was steady. His ruined one caught the monitor light like mercury. Yes, he said. Where? Here, he said quietly. This warehouse, 5 years ago. Before I renovated it, the world tilted again. I grabbed the desk to stay upright. You knew her, I whispered. You knew Lena. You met with her. I met with a journalist. Vincent interrupted, his voice carefully controlled. I didn't know her name. She wouldn't give it. Said she was investigating corruption. Wanted to know if I had information. I told her I didn't talk to reporters. She left. That was the only time I saw her. You're lying. I'm not. Then why didn't you tell me this before? Why did you let me sit here and talk about my sister and you didn't say, because I didn't make the connection, Vincent said, and something in his voice suggested truth mixed with frustration. I meet dozens of people every month. Most of them I forget. She was just another journalist looking for a story. I didn't know she was your sister. I didn't know she died. I didn't know any of it until right now. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust the steady way he met my eyes, the genuine confusion in his expression. But I also remembered the text. Ask him why he really wants you. Who took this photo? I asked. I don't know, but someone was watching. Someone saw you meet with her. Someone knows. Yes, Vincent said quietly. Someone knows, which means this isn't random. This is targeted. Someone's been planning this for a long time, and they've been watching both of us. He moved to the monitors, pulled up files I couldn't read, typed commands I didn't understand. Around us, the warehouse suddenly felt less like shelter and more like the center of something larger and darker than I'd imagined. Vincent, I said. He kept typing. Vincent, I repeated. Louder. He stopped, looked at me. Who was she meeting? I asked. In that photo. That's you taking the picture, isn't it? That's your warehouse. You documented it. So who did she meet? His jaw was so tight I thought something might break. I don't document meetings with journalists, he said. Then who does? Silence, long and terrible. Then Vincent said, very quietly, someone who wanted insurance. Someone who knew even then that information was power. Someone who... His phone rang. Not a normal ring. Something sharp and urgent. He answered immediately. What? He said. Then his face changed. When? How many? Lock it down. I'm coming. He ended the call, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. What happened? I asked. Someone just hit one of my warehouses, the one on Cicero. Took out 6 of my men. Left a message on the wall. What kind of message? Vincent's voice was flat when he answered. Your name, written in blood. And underneath it, you were chosen as a message. They found me in the bathroom, throwing up everything I'd eaten in the last 24 hours. Not Vincent. His men. 2 of them, silent and efficient, who appeared at the doorway like shadows and then respectfully turned away when they saw me on my knees, shaking. My hair stuck to my face with sweat and tears I didn't remember shedding. My name, written in blood. 6 men dead. A message I didn't understand delivered in a language of violence I'd spent my whole life trying to avoid. Miss Brennan, one of them said quietly. Not unkind. Mr. Moretti needs you downstairs. I wanted to tell them I needed 5 minutes. 5 hours. 5 years to process what was happening. Instead, I rinsed my mouth, wiped my face, and followed them down because what else was there to do? Run? To where? My apartment that someone had been watching? My gallery that someone had photographed? The streets of a city that suddenly felt full of eyes and cameras and threats I couldn't see. Vincent was on the phone when I reached the main floor, his voice low and lethal, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Italian, maybe, or something older. Around him, men moved with purpose, checking weapons, studying monitors, speaking in code I couldn't break. The warehouse had transformed from home to headquarters, from shelter to war room. He saw me, ended the call mid-sentence. You shouldn't have come down, he said. Your men said you needed me. I said I needed to know where you were. That's different. He crossed to me in 3 strides, and before I could react, his hands were on my face, tilting it toward the light, his thumbs wiping away tears I hadn't realized were still falling. Are you hurt? He asked. No, just scared. I know. You should be. His hands were warm. Steady. The only steady thing in a world that had tilted so far off its axis, I couldn't find level ground anymore. 6 men, I whispered. Because of me. Not because of you. Because someone wants to hurt me. You're just the weapon they're using. That doesn't make it better. No, Vincent agreed. It doesn't, but it makes it tactical. And tactical I can handle. He released my face but didn't step back. We stood close enough that I could smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with something sharper. Coffee. Stress. The particular scent of a man running scenarios in his head while pretending to be calm. I need to ask you something, he said. And I need you to think very carefully before you answer. Okay. Did Lena ever mention names? People she was investigating? Companies? Anything specific about what she was working on? I searched my memory. 5 years of trying to forget, to move on, to stop seeing conspiracies in every coincidence. But now conspiracy was standing in front of me asking direct questions with blood on the walls as punctuation. She mentioned corruption. I said slowly. City contracts, development deals. She said someone was buying property through shell companies, displacing people, using city money to fund private projects. She said it went high, maybe to the mayor's office. Vincent's expression didn't change, but something in his body language shifted. Recognition, maybe, or confirmation. Did she say who? No, she wouldn't. She said the less I knew, the safer I'd be. She was wrong, Vincent said quietly. Safety isn't about ignorance. It's about knowing exactly what you're up against. One of his men approached, whispered something I couldn't hear. Vincent nodded once. "I have to go," he said to me. "Handle this. I'll be back before morning." Go where? To meet the people who did this. To make very clear what happens when someone touches what's mine. There was that phrase again. What's mine? Possessive and protective in equal measure. "I'm coming with you," I said. "Absolutely not. Vincent." "Raina," he interrupted, and his voice had steel in it now. "What I'm about to do isn't something you need to see. Isn't something I want you to see. You'll stay here. You'll be protected, and you'll trust me to handle this. Like you handled the warehouse on Cicero." The words came out sharper than I intended. Cruel, maybe. But fear makes you cruel sometimes. Makes you strike at the only target available. Vincent went very still. Around us, his men found reasons to be elsewhere. Suddenly interested in monitors and weapons and anything that wasn't the conversation happening between us. "You think I wanted this?" he asked quietly. "You think I wanted 6 of my people dead? You think I wanted your name written in their blood? I think you wanted me," I said, "and you took me, and now people are dying because of it. So maybe the question isn't what I want. Maybe the question is what you're willing to sacrifice to keep something you claim is yours." The silence that followed was absolute. The kind of silence that comes before storms or after funerals. The kind that means something has broken that can't be easily repaired. Then Vincent said, "You're right." I blinked. "What?" "You're right. I wanted you. I saw something rare and I claimed it without asking if you wanted to be claimed. I made a unilateral decision about your safety because I believed I knew better than you did. And now people are dead. My people. Because I wasn't careful enough. Because I showed weakness by caring about someone. That's on me." He stepped back. Put distance between us for the first time since I'd come downstairs. "So here's what's going to happen," he continued, his voice carefully empty. "I'm going to give you a choice. The choice I should have given you from the beginning. You can stay here, under my protection, in my world, with all the danger and violence and moral compromise that entails. Or I can get you out. Tonight. New identity. New city. Enough money to start over somewhere safe. I have the resources. I can make you disappear." "Disappear," I repeated. The word tasted like ash. Completely. New name. New life. You'd never have to see me again. Never have to worry about blood on walls or men with cameras or any of this. You'd be safe. And my sister? What happened to her? I'd just never know. Vincent's jaw tightened. Sometimes not knowing is safer. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Past the expensive clothes and the ruined eye and the careful control. Looked at the man who'd been dying in the rain until I'd given him shelter. The man who'd returned that shelter with protection I hadn't asked for. The man who was now offering me escape with a voice that suggested he was hoping I'd refuse. "If I stay," I said slowly, "what are the rules?" Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Not quite relief. Not quite hope. Something more complicated. 3 rules, he said. Non-negotiable. First, you don't leave this building without my knowledge and protection. Not to your apartment. Not to the gallery. Nowhere. Until this is resolved. That's house arrest. That's survival. Second rule. You tell me everything. Every memory of your sister. Every detail of that night. Every instinct you have about what's happening. No secrets, no protection. Complete transparency. And you? I challenged. Do I get the same from you? Yes, he said without hesitation. I'll tell you everything you want to know about my business, about that night, about who I really am. No filters. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I was sure he believed himself, which might be enough. Third rule? I asked. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You trust me, even when it doesn't make sense. Even when you're scared, even when every instinct says to run, you trust that I will keep you alive. Because if you can't do that, if you're going to second-guess every decision I make, then you're safer gone." The ultimatum was clear. Complete trust or complete absence. No middle ground. "I have a rule too," I said. "I'm listening." You don't lie to me. Ever. Even if you think the truth will hurt. Even if you think it will make me leave. I've spent 5 years living with convenient lies about how my sister died. I'm done with lies. If we're doing this, if I'm staying, then I need the truth. All of it. Always. Vincent studied me for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Deal, he said. I looked at his hand, at the scars on his knuckles that suggested violence was as familiar to him as breathing, at the steadiness that suggested he'd never broken a promise he'd actually made. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, the kind of handshake that sealed contracts in worlds where contracts weren't written down. I need to go, he said, not releasing my hand immediately. What happened tonight? The men I lost. That requires a response. It's expected. It's necessary. And it won't be gentle. I understand. Do you? He asked. Because there's understanding in theory and understanding in practice. And I need to know that when I come back, you'll still be here. That you won't have convinced yourself that the man who touches your face gently is somehow different from the man who'll do what needs to be done to the people who killed his men and threatened you. I thought about that. About compartmentalization and moral relativism and the cognitive dissonance of accepting protection from someone capable of violence. Thought about my sister and car accidents that weren't accidents and the way the world was darker than I'd wanted to believe. I'll be here, I said finally. Vincent nodded once. Then he did something unexpected. He lifted my hand, still holding his, and pressed it briefly to his chest, over his heart. Let me feel it beating steady and strong beneath expensive fabric and muscle and bone. That's real, he said quietly. Whatever else you doubt about me, about this, about us, that's real. I don't do this. Don't let people in. Don't care about civilians. Don't risk my organization for one person. But you, he stopped, shook his head. Just remember that, he said. When you're up here alone, overthinking everything, remember that what you feel isn't one-sided. It's just complicated. He released my hand, stepped back, became someone else, someone harder, colder, more dangerous. The transformation was so complete it was almost frightening. Marcus, he called to one of his men. She doesn't leave your sight, understood? Yes, sir. And if anyone tries to get past you, you know what to do. Marcus nodded. His hand rested casually on the weapon at his hip. Vincent looked at me one more time. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with 6 men who moved like weapons themselves. And I was left standing in a warehouse full of monitors and locks and the kind of silence that comes after promises that might be impossible to keep. Marcus turned out to be surprisingly good company. He didn't talk much, which I appreciated, just positioned himself between me and the door and went about the business of being vigilant, while I went about the business of not falling apart. I tried to sleep. Couldn't. My mind kept replaying the day on an endless loop. The photo of Lena, Vincent's confession about meeting her, 6 men dead with my name in blood. It was too much. Too fast. Like being dropped into the deep end of a pool I hadn't known existed. So I did what I always did when my mind wouldn't quiet. I looked for work. The warehouse had a strange kind of library in one corner, file cabinets and boxes, and what looked like decades of documentation. Vincent had said transparency, had said I could know everything. Maybe he'd meant it. Maybe this was where truth lived, filed away in manila folders and digital archives. Mrs. Brennan, Marcus said when he saw me opening drawers. Not aggressive, just alert. Vincent said I could ask questions. I replied, I'm asking. Marcus considered this. Then he nodded slightly and went back to his position by the door. I searched systematically. Most of what I found was mundane: expense reports, property records, employment contracts. The infrastructure of running an organization, legal and otherwise. Nothing that screamed criminal enterprise. Nothing that looked like the kind of thing that would get someone killed. Then I found the newspaper clippings. They were in a box marked with a date 5 years ago, the month Lena died. Inside, articles about corruption investigations, city contracts, development deals. All the things Lena had been researching. All carefully preserved like evidence or insurance or guilt. And underneath them, a photo. Not the same photo that had been sent to my phone. This one was clearer, taken from a different angle. and in it, Lena's face was visible, frightened but determined. And the man she was meeting? My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped it. "Ms. Brennan?" Marcus was beside me. "What is it?" I showed him the photo. Watched his expression change from concern to something colder. "Where did you find this?" he asked. "In that box. Who is he?" "The man Lena was meeting." Marcus was quiet. Then he said, "That's Marcus Hale, city developer, real estate, very connected, very powerful, very dangerous?" I finished. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Moretti has been watching him for years, trying to build a case, but Hale's protected, has friends in places that matter." My mind was racing. Lena had met with Marcus Hale, had been investigating him, and then she'd died. And Vincent had known about Hale, had been watching him, had files on him. Had Vincent known more than he'd said? Had he lied despite his promises? "I need to call him," I said. "Ma'am, Mr. Moretti is in the middle of—" "I don't care. I need to talk to him. Now—" Marcus hesitated. Then he pulled out his phone, dialed, handed it to me. Vincent answered on the second ring. I could hear sounds in the background, voices, movement, something that might have been pain. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "Marcus Hale," I said. "That's who Lena was meeting. That's who she was investigating." "You knew. You had files on him, photos. Why didn't you tell me?" Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought the connection had dropped. "Vincent, I didn't tell you," he said finally, his voice strained. "Because Marcus Hale is the man who ordered the hit on me 3 months ago. The man who tried to kill me the night you found me. And if I'd told you that, you would have asked me why. And I wasn't ready to answer that question." My stomach dropped. "Why?" I whispered. "Because 5 years ago, your sister came to me with evidence about Hale. Evidence that could have destroyed him. She wanted protection, wanted me to help her expose him. And I said no. I told her I didn't get involved in political corruption, that it wasn't my business. And 3 days later, she was dead. The warehouse tilted. I grabbed the desk to stay upright. I couldn't finish. Couldn't form words around the rage and grief and betrayal choking me. "I killed her," Vincent said quietly. "Not directly. Not with my hands. But by refusing to help when she needed it. By choosing neutrality when neutrality meant death. So yes, Rena, I've been hunting Marcus Hale for 5 years. And yes, I knew who your sister was the moment you told me her name. And yes, I lied when I said I didn't make the connection. Because I couldn't tell you that I was the reason she died. That my cowardice got her killed. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only feel wave after wave of betrayal crashing over me. Where are you?" I managed. "Finishing what I should have done 5 years ago," Vincent said. "Hale had a lieutenant, the one who wrote your name on that wall. I'm making very clear what happens when you touch my people. When you—" Gunshots. Clear and close through the phone. "Vincent." More shots, shouting, then silence. "Vincent." I screamed into the phone. Nothing. The line went dead. I stood there holding Marcus's phone, trembling, while somewhere in the city Vincent Moretti was either dead or dying and I had no way to reach him, no way to help, no way to take back the accusations I'd made right before someone started shooting. Marcus took the phone gently from my hand. "He'll be okay," he said. "Mr. Moretti always—" His phone rang. Different tone. "Emergency?" He answered. Listened. His face went pale. "Understood," he said. "We're moving now." He hung up, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "What happened?" I demanded. "We need to go. Now. There's a safe house across town. Mr. Moretti's orders." "Tell me what happened." Marcus grabbed weapons from a cabinet, started loading them with efficiency that suggested practice. "The hit on Mr. Moretti 3 months ago? And what happened tonight?" "They weren't about business," he said while working. "They were about you. About your sister. Marcus Hale has been planning this for 5 years. And tonight he made his move. He has evidence, photos, recordings, things that make it look like Mr. Moretti ordered your sister's death." The world stopped. "What?" "The DA is issuing a warrant. for Mr. Moretti's arrest, for murder. And the only person who can prove he's innocent, the only person who knows what really happened 5 years ago, is you. He handed me a jacket, started moving toward the door. So we need to get you somewhere safe, before Hale's people find you and make sure you can't testify. But Vincent is handling it, like he always does, but he can't do it if you're dead. So we're leaving. Now, I followed him because I had no other choice. Followed him through the warehouse and into the parking garage and into a car that looked armored and probably was. As we pulled out onto the street, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, swore quietly. "What?" I asked. He showed me the screen, a photo. Vincent, being loaded into a police car, hands cuffed behind his back, blood on his face, and behind him, watching with a smile I could see even in the grainy photo, Marcus Hale. Below it, a text from an unknown number. "He came to your rescue. Now you have to decide. Save him or expose him, but you can't do both. Choose wisely. You have until morning. The safe house wasn't safe." I knew at the moment we pulled up to the brownstone in Lincoln Park. Too visible, too residential, too much like the kind of place people notice strangers coming and going. Marcus seemed to sense my hesitation because he said, without looking at me, "It's temporary, just until we figure out next moves." Next moves, like this was chess. Like Vincent wasn't sitting in a holding cell somewhere with my sister's death hung around his neck like an anchor. Inside, the house was sterile, furnished but unlived in. The kind of place that existed only for emergencies, everything chosen for function over comfort. Marcus did a sweep of the rooms while I stood in the entryway, still holding my phone, still staring at that photo of Vincent in handcuffs. "He came to your rescue. Now you have to decide. Save him or expose him." The choice felt impossible. Testify that Vincent had refused to help Lena, that his inaction had contributed to her death, and clear him of murder charges but destroy any chance we had of actually bringing down Hale. Or stay silent, let Vincent take the fall, watch an innocent man go to prison while the person who'd actually killed my sister walked free. Except Vincent wasn't innocent, not really. He'd admitted it himself. His cowardice had gotten Lena killed. But cowardice wasn't murder. Ms. Brennan. Marcus appeared in the doorway to what looked like a kitchen. "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "When's the last time you ate?" I couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time had become elastic, stretching and compressing until I couldn't track it anymore. "I need to think," I said. "You need food, then thinking, in that order." There was something almost parental in his insistence. This man, this armed guard who'd been assigned to keep me alive, suddenly caring about whether I'd eaten. It made something in my chest crack open, just slightly. I followed him into the kitchen. He made eggs, toast, coffee so strong it could strip paint. We sat at a table meant for $4, and I pushed food around my plate while Marcus ate with the efficiency of someone who'd learned that meals were fuel, nothing more. "How long have you worked for Vincent?" I asked finally. 8 years. "Is he—" I stopped. Started again. "Is he a good man?" Marcus considered this while chewing. Then he said, "Mr. Moretti is a fair man. In our world, that's rarer than good. He keeps his word, protects his people, doesn't ask us to do things he wouldn't do himself. That counts for something. Even if what he does is illegal. Laws are written by people with power, Missy Brennan. Sometimes the legal thing and the right thing aren't the same." I thought about that. About city developers who displaced families and bribed officials and killed journalists who got too close to the truth. About how they did it all legally, with lawyers and contracts and the full protection of systems designed to protect people exactly like them. "He should have helped her," I said quietly. "My sister, when she came to him. He should have said yes." "Yes," Marcus agreed simply. "He should have. And he spent 5 years trying to make it right. Doesn't bring her back, but it's something." "Is it enough?" Marcus looked at me directly then, his expression unreadable. "That's not for me to answer, ma'am. That's between you and him." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My hands shook as I opened it. A video this time. Grainy, the timestamp showing 3 days before Lena died. She was in her apartment, the one I'd helped her move into, with the bay window she'd loved and the landlord who never fixed anything on time. She was pacing, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand moving in the agitated way it did when she was scared or angry or both. The audio was muffled, but I could make out pieces. Won't help me. Tried everyone. No one wants to touch this. Maybe you were right. Maybe I should just... She stopped. Listened to whoever was on the other end. I know it's dangerous. I know what I'm risking. But someone has to... People are being hurt. Families are losing everything. Another pause. Longer this time. Raina, no. Can't drag her into this. She's got the gallery her whole life. Safest thing is for her not to know. My vision blurred. I'd spent 5 years believing I could have saved her if I'd just said yes to holding that flash drive. But she'd been protecting me. Deliberately keeping me ignorant because she'd thought ignorance would keep me safe. The video continued. Lena sat down heavily on her couch. Her face was drawn, exhausted, aged beyond her 29 years. Tomorrow, meeting someone who might be able to help. Says he has connections, can get the story published even if they try to bury it. She gave an address. I recognized it immediately. The warehouse. Vincent's warehouse, before he'd renovated it. If something happens to me, if this goes wrong, the drive is hidden in Mom's old jewelry box, the false bottom. You remember how it works? The video ended. Below it, a new message. Your sister trusted the wrong person. Don't make the same mistake. The flash drive still exists. And we have it. Marcus Hale. I showed Marcus the video. Watched his jaw tighten. The jewelry box, I said. Do you still have it? Your mother's things. Everything went to storage after she died. I couldn't deal with it. We need that drive. Ms. Brennan, if Hale says he has it, then he's lying. He can't have it, because Lena hid it and died before she could tell anyone except me. And I didn't know where to look because I didn't watch this video. Because this video was on her phone and the police never released her phone to me because they said it was destroyed in the crash. Understanding dawned on Marcus's face. Someone's had access to her phone this whole time. Has been sitting on this evidence, waiting. For what? For the right moment to use it. For leverage. His phone rang. He answered immediately, his expression shifting from alert to alarmed in the space of a heartbeat. When? How many? He said what? He stood abruptly, already moving toward the weapons cabinet I'd noticed by the door. What's happening? I asked. Vincent's arraignment is this morning. Hale's people are there, so are ours. It's getting tense, and there's a complication. What kind of complication? Marcus hesitated. Then he said, Vincent just fired his lawyer. Says he wants to represent himself. And the first thing he told the judge is that he's pleading guilty to conspiracy in your sister's death. The world tilted sideways. He what? He's taking responsibility. Says he had information that could have saved her and chose not to act. Says that makes him culpable under the law. That's not, he can, and he is. And if you don't get down there and stop him, he's going to prison for something he didn't do to protect someone who actually did. I was already moving, grabbing my jacket, my phone, my keys to a car I didn't own anymore. We need to go, I said. Ms. Brennan, it's not safe. If you go to that courthouse, I don't care. I'm not letting him do this. Marcus studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Okay, but we do this my way. You stay close. You don't talk to anyone I don't approve. And if things go sideways, you run. Understood? Understood. We were halfway to the car when Marcus's phone rang again. He answered, listened. His face went pale. Where? Jesus. Okay, we're coming. He hung up. Looked at me with an expression that made my blood run cold. What? I demanded. There's been an incident. At the storage facility where your mother's things are kept. Someone broke in. Set a fire, the whole unit is gone. My knees nearly gave out. The jewelry box, the flash drive, the only physical evidence that could prove what really happened. Hale, I whispered. Probably, which means he knows you know where it was, which means he's covering his tracks, which means I'm next, I finished. Marcus didn't deny it, just opened the car door and said, get in. We need to get you to the courthouse before he figures out where you are. The drive downtown was tense and silent. Marcus kept checking mirrors, taking turns that didn't make sense, doubling back on our route, making sure we weren't followed, making sure I stayed alive long enough to save a man who maybe didn't deserve saving. But that was the thing. Deserve had nothing to do with it anymore. Vincent had failed my sister, had been a coward when she'd needed courage, had chosen neutrality when neutrality meant death, but he'd also spent 5 years trying to make it right. Had protected me without asking for anything in return, had offered me escape when keeping me close put him in danger, had looked at my grief and guilt and hadn't flinched, and now he was willing to go to prison to protect the truth about what really happened. That had to count for something. The courthouse was chaos, news vans, protesters, some supporting Vincent, some calling for his head, police everywhere trying to maintain order. Marcus parked in a loading zone, flashed credentials I couldn't see, and suddenly we had an escort through back corridors to a courtroom that smelled like old wood and older lies. Vincent was at the defendant's table. Even from the back of the room, I could see the damage, bruised face, split lip, the careful way he held his left side that suggested broken ribs. He'd been in a fight. Multiple fights, probably, and he'd lost at least a few. But when he saw me, something in his expression shifted. Not relief, something more complicated. Something that looked like regret and resignation and a kind of desperate hope. The judge was speaking, an older woman with silver hair and a voice like gravel. "Highly irregular, Mr. Moretti. You understand that representing yourself in a case of this magnitude. I understand, Your Honor, and I maintain my plea. Guilty to conspiracy. To moral failure," Vincent interrupted. "Not legal conspiracy. I had information. I chose not to act. A woman died because of my cowardice. I want that on the record." The prosecutor, a man in an expensive suit who I recognized from election billboards, stood immediately. "Your Honor, the defendant is attempting to manipulate these proceedings. We have evidence of direct involvement in—" "You have fabricated evidence," Vincent said quietly. "Provided by Marcus Hale. The same Marcus Hale who actually ordered Lena Brennan's death. The same Marcus Hale who's been using city contracts to—" "Your Honor!" The prosecutor was nearly shouting. "This is exactly the kind of grandstanding." "I can prove it," I said. The courtroom went silent. Everyone turned to look at me standing in the back. Marcus beside me, my voice carrying farther than I'd intended. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And you are Lena Brennan's sister, and I have information relevant to this case." The prosecutor moved toward me immediately, but the judge held up a hand. "Approach," she said. Marcus and I walked down the center aisle. I felt Vincent's eyes on me the whole way, felt the weight of everything unsaid between us, all the truth and lies and complicated promises we'd made to each other. When I reached the front, I turned to face the judge directly. "My sister came to Vincent Moretti 5 years ago asking for help investigating Marcus Hale. He refused. She was killed 3 days later. Mr. Moretti has spent the last 5 years trying to bring down Hale to make amends for his inaction. That's not murder. That's guilt. They're not the same thing." The prosecutor started to object, but I kept talking. "And I can prove Marcus Hale ordered my sister's death. Because before she died, she hid evidence, a flash drive. And she told me where it was, not directly, but in a video on her phone. A phone that was supposed to have been destroyed in the crash. A phone that Marcus Hale somehow has access to. Which means he's known for 5 years exactly where that evidence was. And this morning, someone broke into my storage unit and destroyed it. I pulled out my phone, showed the judge the video Hale had sent me. That's Marcus Hale's number. That's my sister 3 days before she died. That's her telling me where to find the evidence. And that's Hale admitting he has access to evidence that should have been destroyed 5 years ago." The courtroom erupted. The prosecutor was shouting. Vincent was standing now, his expression unreadable. The judge was banging her gavel, calling for order. And in the back of the room, I saw him, Marcus Hale, watching me with a smile that made my skin crawl. A smile that said he'd been waiting for this, that this was exactly what he'd wanted. He stood, walked calmly toward the exit, and no one stopped him because why would they? He was a respected developer, a philanthropist, a man who donated to judicial campaigns and sat on charity boards and looked nothing like a killer. "Marcus!" I shouted. "Marcus Hale!" He turned at the door, met my eyes, and mouthed 2 words, "Too late." Then he was gone. And I understood with cold, perfect clarity that I'd just done exactly what he'd wanted. Had come to the courthouse, had made a public statement, had revealed that I knew where the evidence was, or had been, had painted a target on my back so bright that every news camera in the city had just captured it in high definition. Vincent was beside me suddenly. I didn't know when he'd moved, but his hand was on my arm, his voice low and urgent. "We need to go. Now." "Vincent? Raina? You just told a room full of people that you're the only person who knows what's on that drive. Even if it's gone, even if it's destroyed, he can't risk that you remember something. That you made copies, that..." Gunshots. Outside the courthouse. Close. Getting closer. Marcus, Vincent's Marcus, materialized, pulling me toward a side door. Vincent was right behind us, moving despite his injuries with a speed that suggested adrenaline and desperation. We burst into a hallway. More gunshots, screaming, the sound of people running. "This way," Vincent said, pulling me in the opposite direction everyone else was fleeing. "And we should go where the people are. The people are targets. They're shooting blind. We need to get you somewhere defensible." We ran, through corridors that all looked the same, upstairs, downstairs, until we reached a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," that Vincent somehow had a key for. Inside was a judge's chambers, empty. Windows overlooking the street below where I could see police cars and ambulances, and a black van that had crashed into the courthouse steps. "Hale's making his move," Vincent said, locking the door behind us. "He knows the evidence is gone, knows you can't prove anything. So now he just needs to eliminate the witness. Me. You." Marcus was on his phone, speaking rapidly. "How many? Where? Send everyone. I don't care what it costs. Everyone." He hung up, looked at Vincent. "We're surrounded. At least a dozen shooters, maybe more. They've sealed the exits. This is a coordinated hit." Vincent's jaw was tight. He went to the window, looked down. Then he turned to me, and his expression was the calmest I'd ever seen it. "I need you to listen very carefully," he said. "In about 3 minutes, my people are going to storm this building. It's going to get loud, violent, dangerous. I need you to stay here. Lock this door behind us. Don't open it for anyone except Marcus or me. Understood? Where are you going?" "To end this, one way or another." Vincent, he crossed to me in 2 steps, took my face in his hands, looked at me with his ruined eye and his whole one and something in his expression that made my breath catch. "I failed your sister," he said quietly. "I won't fail you. I promise you that." Then he kissed me. Not gentle, not careful, urgent and desperate and tasting like blood and fear and something that felt like goodbye. When he pulled back, I was shaking. "Stay here," he said again. "No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay here and you stay alive. That's all that matters." "Vincent!" But he was already gone. Marcus following. The door closing behind them with a click that sounded like finality. I locked it, pressed my back against it, listened to footsteps receding down the hallway. 30 seconds later, the shooting started. And I realized with perfect, terrible clarity that Vincent Moretti had just gone to war for me. And I had no idea if either of us would survive it. The silence after gunfire is its own kind of violence. I stayed pressed against that door for what felt like hours but was probably minutes, listening to the chaos on the other side, shouts and running footsteps and sounds I couldn't identify but knew instinctively were terrible. My hands were flat against the wood, as if I could somehow feel through it what was happening to Vincent, to Marcus, to all those people caught in the crossfire of a war I'd accidentally started by being kind to a stranger in the rain. The shooting stopped. That was somehow worse. I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. Trying to remember what Vincent's face had looked like right before he'd kissed me. Trying to hold on to that moment of certainty before he'd walked into violence I couldn't see but could feel in my bones. A knock on the door made me jump so hard I bit my tongue. "Ms. Brennan." Marcus's voice, strained but alive. "It's clear. You can open up." My hands shook as I unlocked the deadbolt. The door swung open to reveal Marcus, blood on his shirt, not his, a cut above his eye that would need stitches. Behind him, the hallway looked like something from a war zone. Bullet holes in walls, overturned furniture, the acrid smell of gunpowder and fear. "Vincent?" I managed. Alive. Pissed off. Waiting for you. Relief made my knees weak. I followed Marcus through corridors that had been transformed by violence into something unfamiliar. We passed federal agents securing the scene, paramedics tending to wounded, and men in suits who I recognized from the warehouse. Vincent's people, looking grim but victorious. They'd won. Whatever battle had just been fought, they'd won. But the cost was visible everywhere. Vincent was in what looked like a holding room, sitting on a table while a paramedic tried to examine his ribs. He was arguing with her, his voice sharp with pain and irritation, and when he saw me, he stopped mid-sentence. "Out," he said to the paramedic. "Mr. Moretti, you have at least 2 broken. Out, now." She left, shooting me a look that suggested I was dealing with the world's worst patient. The door closed. We were alone. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other across the wreckage of a morning that had started with accusations and ended with a small war fought in a courthouse. "You came," Vincent said finally. "You're an idiot," I replied. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face, gone too quickly to be sure. "You were going to plead guilty to something you didn't do." "I did do it, just not the way they claimed." "That's not how the law works." "The law," Vincent said, and his voice had an edge to it now, "is written by people like Marcus Hale. People who know how to make murder look like business, and business look like justice. If I'd fought those charges the traditional way, I'd have lost. The evidence he manufactured was too good. The connections he has too deep, so I changed the game. By confessing to moral failure, by making it about truth instead of legality, by forcing the conversation to be about what actually happened instead of what could be proven in court." He winced, pressing a hand to his ribs. "And by getting you into that courtroom where Hale would have to react, where he'd have to show his hand. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. You used me as bait." "I used the situation," Vincent corrected. "You made your own choice to come, to speak, to... You knew I would. You knew I'd try to save you." "I hoped. There's a difference." The anger that had been building in my chest since Marcus had told me about the arraignment finally found its voice. "You could have died. All those people out there, they could have died. Because you decided to manipulate the situation instead of just telling me the truth from the beginning. If I'd told you the truth from the beginning," Vincent said quietly, "you would have run. You would have seen me as the man who killed your sister through cowardice, and you would have disappeared before I could protect you. Before I could make this right. You can't make this right. She's dead. No amount of revenge or justice or whatever you want to call what just happened brings her back. No, it doesn't." Vincent stood slowly, carefully, moving like every breath hurt. "But it stops Hale from doing it to someone else. It exposes the network he's built. It makes visible the corruption your sister died trying to reveal. That's not the same as bringing her back, but it's something." He was close now. Close enough that I could see the new bruises forming on his face, the way his hands were swollen from hitting something or someone, the exhaustion that lived deeper than physical injury. "I'm sorry," he said, "for using your trust, for putting you in danger, for not being brave enough 5 years ago to help your sister when she needed it. I've made a career out of strategic thinking, calculated risks, playing chess with people's lives. But with you..." He stopped, started again. "With you, I keep making mistakes, keep choosing wrong, keep hurting you when all I want is to keep you safe." "Then stop," I said. My voice cracked. "Stop making decisions for me. Stop trying to protect me by keeping me in the dark. Stop treating me like I'm something fragile that needs to be managed instead of a person who deserves the truth." "You're right." The admission surprised me. I'd been preparing for an argument, for justifications, for all the ways he'd explain why his methods were necessary in his world. "You're right," he repeated. "And I'm sorry. No more secrets, no more manipulation. Just," he gestured helplessly, "just truth. Even when it's ugly, even when it makes you hate me." "I don't hate you," I said quietly. "You should, maybe. But I don't." Vincent reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand cupped my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I'd learned about him in the last few days. What Hale did today, he said, attacking a courthouse, trying to kill you in broad daylight, that's desperation. That's a man who knows he's losing. My people captured 3 of his shooters. They're talking, giving up names, locations, bank accounts, everything your sister was trying to expose. We're going to expose it now, properly, with enough evidence that even Hale's connections can't bury it. And the flash drive? Vincent's expression shifted. Destroyed, probably. The storage unit fire was thorough. But he pulled out his phone, showed me a screen full of file names I didn't recognize. Your sister was smart. She didn't just hide the drive. She uploaded encrypted copies to 3 different cloud servers. My tech people have been trying to crack them for years. We finally got in this morning. I stared at the screen, at file names that included city contracts, wire transfers, construction permits, meeting minutes, everything, all of it, every piece of evidence Lena had died for. She did it, I whispered. She got the proof. She did. And now we're going to use it. The DA's office is already reviewing. By tonight, they'll have enough to arrest Hale and at least a dozen city officials. By next week, this will be the biggest corruption scandal Chicago's seen in decades. Because my sister was brave enough to investigate, smart enough to protect the evidence, good enough to care about people being hurt by men with power. Yes, Vincent said simply. She was everything you said, everything you believed, and I failed her. But I won't fail her memory. That, I promise you. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, wiping away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. The question is, he continued quietly, can you live with that? Can you accept that I'm the man who didn't help her, but will spend the rest of my life making sure her work wasn't for nothing? That I'm someone who operates in moral gray areas but has lines I won't cross? That I'll always choose your safety over your autonomy if I think you're in danger? I thought about that, about the man who wore sunglasses to hide his scars, who'd returned an umbrella with a ring attached, who'd paid my rent without asking and installed security I didn't want, and made decisions I didn't agree with. All in service of a debt he felt he owed to a woman he'd met once and failed to save. I thought about my sister, about the kind of person she'd been, someone who'd seen injustice and couldn't look away, who'd risked everything to protect people she'd never met, who'd kept me safe by keeping me ignorant, even though it meant dying alone. I can't promise to forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did, what you didn't do, that's going to take time to process, to understand, to make peace with. Vincent nodded. He didn't look surprised, just sad in a way that suggested he'd been expecting this. But, I continued, I can promise to try. To see who you are now, instead of just what you did then. To understand that people are more complicated than their worst moments. That cowardice doesn't erase courage. That failing once doesn't mean you'll fail again. Raina, I'm not finished. I took a breath. I also can't promise to be the kind of person who just accepts protection without fighting back. Who trusts blindly. Who doesn't question or argue or demand answers. If we're doing this, whatever this is, then I need autonomy. I need agency. I need to be a partner in decisions that affect my life. That's fair. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you've been making every major decision since the night I gave you my umbrella. Where I live, what I drive, who I trust, where I go. And I understand that some of that was necessary, that you were trying to keep me alive. But it felt like imprisonment instead of protection. Vincent finished. I know. Marcus mentioned that you called it house arrest. He was right. The admission cost him something. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his hand dropped from my face. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. Caring about someone who isn't part of my world. Someone who has their own life, their own choices, their own agency that I can't just override with security protocols and strategic planning. Every instinct I have says to lock you somewhere safe and eliminate every threat before letting you out. But I'm starting to understand that's not protection, that's control. And control isn't the same as care. No, I agreed, it's not. So teach me. Show me how to care without controlling, how to protect without imprisoning, how to... He stopped, tried again. How to be someone you'd choose to be with instead of someone you're forced to tolerate. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. This man, this dangerous, powerful, careful man, was asking me for guidance in something as simple and complicated as how to love without owning. First step, I said, is asking instead of assuming. Raina, I think you should stay at the warehouse tonight because the threat level is still high. Instead of, you're staying at the warehouse because I said so. See the difference? Permission instead of command. Collaboration instead of decree. I'm not one of your men, Vincent. I'm not someone you can order around. I'm the woman who saved my life, who gave me shelter when I was bleeding out on the street, who looked at my damaged face and didn't flinch, who stood in a courtroom and defended me even after learning I'd failed the person she loved most. His voice had gone rough, raw in a way I'd never heard. You're the only person in my entire life who's seen me at my worst and chosen to stay anyway. Not because you're paid to, not because you're afraid of me, just because you decided I was worth saving, worth trusting, worth giving a second chance. Vincent, so yes, I'll ask instead of command. I'll collaborate instead of decree. I'll try to be the kind of man who deserves what you're offering, even though I'm not sure I know how. The door burst open. A federal agent I didn't recognize. Tall, black, wearing a suit that looked expensive and uncomfortable in equal measure. Mr. Moretti, Ms. Brennan, we need you both to come with us. Vincent tensed immediately. On what grounds? Protective custody. Marcus Hale is still at large. He has resources, connections, and a demonstrated willingness to commit violence in public places. Until we have him in custody, you're both targets. I have my own security, Vincent said, which clearly isn't enough, given what happened here today. The agent's voice was firm, but not unkind. This isn't a request. The U.S. attorney wants you both in a secure location until Hale is apprehended. You can fight it in court tomorrow. But for tonight, you're coming with us. Vincent looked at me. I saw the calculation in his expression. Weighing risks, considering options, planning moves I couldn't predict. Then he did something unexpected. He asked, Raina, what do you want to do? The agent looked surprised. Vincent's people, gathering in the hallway, looked shocked. Apparently, Vincent Moretti asking for someone else's opinion on a security matter was unprecedented. I thought about it. About Hale still out there, angry and desperate and dangerous. About the warehouse that had been my prison and my shelter. About federal agents with their protocols and their secure locations and their promises of safety that might or might not be real. I want to go home, I said finally. To my actual home? My apartment? I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to feel like my life is mine again, even if it's just for one night. The agent started to object, but Vincent held up a hand. If she wants to go home, we'll make it safe. I'll put a team on every entrance, surveillance on every approach, enough security that Hale would need an army to get through. Mr. Moretti, I understand your concerns, but Ms. Brennan just asked for autonomy, for agency, for the ability to make decisions about her own life. And I'm not going to override that unless the threat is imminent and specific. Is it? The agent hesitated, then admitted, no. We have increased surveillance. No indication Hale knows her home address. No chatter suggesting an immediate move against either of you. Then we go to her apartment. You're welcome to post agents outside, but inside, that's her space. Her decision, her life. The agent didn't look happy, but he nodded. We'll have 2 vehicles escort you. Agents on the building perimeter. Check-ins every 2 hours. Any sign of trouble, you call immediately. Agreed, Vincent said. Then he looked at me. Is that acceptable? The fact that he was asking, really asking, not just going through the motions, made something warm bloom in my chest. Yes, I said. That's acceptable. My apartment looked exactly as I'd left it. Smaller than I remembered. Shabbier. The kind of place that felt safe because it was mine, because I'd chosen it, because every stain and crack and quirk was familiar. Vincent's security team did a sweep, checking windows, testing locks, installing equipment I'd probably never notice. Marcus positioned himself in the living room like a particularly lethal piece of furniture. Federal agents took up positions in the hallway and the building's entrance. And then, finally, we were alone. Vincent stood in my kitchen, this dangerous man in an expensive suit, looking completely out of place among my mismatched dishes and cheap appliances. Thank you, I said. For what? For asking. For letting me choose. For not just... I gestured vaguely. For not just taking over. I'm trying, Vincent said simply. Probably failing, but trying. You're doing better than you think. He moved closer. Carefully, like he was approaching something wild that might bolt. Can I stay? He asked. Tonight? I don't want to leave you alone. Even with all the security. Even knowing you're probably safer than you've ever been. Yes, I said before he could finish. You can stay. Relief washed over his face. He reached for me, then stopped, his hand suspended in the air between us. Can I? Yes, I said again. He pulled me close, carefully, like I was something precious that might break. I pressed my face against his chest and felt his heart beating too fast. Felt the way his hands shook slightly as they settled on my back. Felt the weight of everything we'd survived settling into something that felt almost like peace. I have to testify, I said after a while. When they catch Hale, I have to tell them everything. About Lena, about the flash drive, about what you told me. All of it. I know. Some of it will make you look bad. Will reveal things about your business you probably don't want public. I know, Vincent repeated. And I'll accept that. Your sister deserves justice. That's more important than my reputation. I pulled back enough to look at his face. The ruined eye, the new bruises, the exhaustion that had carved itself into lines I hadn't noticed before. Who are you really? I asked. Under all the strategy and control and careful planning. Who is Vincent Moretti when he's not trying to protect someone or maintain power or survive in a world that wants him dead? Vincent was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I don't know anymore. I've been this, he gestured at himself, this version of me for so long that I'm not sure there's anything else underneath. But with you, he touched my face again. That gesture that was becoming familiar. With you, I think I want to find out, want to see who I could be if I wasn't so afraid all the time. Afraid of what? Of losing, of being vulnerable, of caring about someone enough that their pain becomes mine, of being the kind of man who gets killed because he stopped paying attention to threats long enough to feel something real. Is that what I am? A threat to your survival? Yes, Vincent said simply. The biggest one I've ever faced. Because you make me want things I've spent my entire adult life convinced I couldn't have. Safety, peace, someone to come home to who isn't on my payroll. What if I'm not ready for that? I asked quietly. What if I'm still figuring out if I can forgive you? If I can trust you? If I can build something with a man whose world is so different from mine? Then we take it slow, figure it out together. Make mistakes and fix them. Learn how to be people who can be honest about what we want, and what we fear, and what we're capable of giving. That sounds terrifying. It is, Vincent agreed. But I've faced down men with guns and lived through assassination attempts and built an empire in a city that eats people alive. I think I can handle being terrified by someone I'm falling in love with. The words hung in the air between us. Too big. Too soon. Too real. You don't love me, I said. You barely know me. I know you gave a stranger your umbrella. I know you defended me in a courtroom even after learning I'd failed your sister. I know you demanded autonomy when most people would have just accepted protection. I know you're brave and stubborn and kind in a world that punishes kindness. That's enough to start. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to respond to someone offering love like it was both gift and burden, promise and threat. So I kissed him instead. Not the desperate goodbye kiss from earlier. This one was slower, gentler. An exploration instead of an ending. His hands came up to cup my face, his touch reverent in a way that contradicted everything I knew about what those hands had done, were capable of doing. When we pulled apart, I said, I'm not ready to say it back. I know, but I'm ready to try, to see what this could be. To learn how to be with someone whose world is dangerous and complicated and nothing like mine. That's enough, Vincent said. For now, that's more than enough. We stood there in my small kitchen, holding each other while outside, security teams protected us from a man who wanted me dead, and a city that would wake up tomorrow to news of the biggest corruption scandal in decades. Tomorrow, there would be testimony and trials and consequences I couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, there was just this. Two damaged people learning how to be gentle with each other's wounds. It wasn't safety. It wasn't peace. It wasn't anything like what I'd imagined love would feel like. But it was real and honest. And maybe, possibly, enough to build something on. If we survived long enough to try. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Vincent's voice, low and tense, speaking to someone in my living room. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it came back. My apartment, my bed, Vincent staying the night. We'd fallen asleep on the couch, talking until exhaustion won. At some point, he must have carried me to my bedroom, because I was under my own blankets, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The clock said 6:15 a.m. Gray morning light filtered through my curtains. Outside, the city was just beginning to wake up. But inside my apartment, something was already wrong. I found Vincent standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his posture rigid with the kind of tension that meant bad news. Marcus sat at my small dining table, laptop open, his expression grim. Neither noticed me immediately. "Don't care what the DA says," Vincent was saying. "I want every location searched, every property Hale owns or has access to." He didn't just disappear. Someone's hiding him. He paused, listening. His jaw tightened. "Then make them talk. I don't care how. Just find him before..." He stopped, saw me in the doorway. His expression shifted from cold fury to something softer, though the tension remained. "I'll call you back." He ended the call, crossed to me in 3 strides. "You should be sleeping," he said quietly. What happened? Hales disappeared. Completely. He didn't go home. Didn't go to any of his properties. His phone's off. His credit card's inactive. It's like he vanished. I sat down heavily on the couch. That's good, right? He's running. He's scared. Or he's planning something. Vincent sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Men like Hale don't just run. They regroup, strategize, find leverage. What kind of leverage could he possibly have left? Vincent and Marcus exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "What?" I demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Last night, while you were sleeping, we received intel from one of Hale's people we picked up at the courthouse. He says Hale has been planning this for months. The hit on Vincent, the frame job, getting you involved. All of it was designed to draw us out, to make us visible. And for what purpose?" "To prove a point," Vincent said quietly. "That even someone like me, someone with resources and power and security, can be touched, can be hurt, can have everything taken away if you know the right pressure points." "I don't understand." "Hale isn't just a real estate developer," Vincent explained. "He's a facilitator. He connects people who need things done with people who can do them. Politicians who need campaign funds. Businessmen who need zoning approvals. Criminals who need legitimate fronts. He's a middleman in a network that spans the entire city. And my sister was going to expose all of it. Yes, but more than that. She was going to expose the system. The way corruption works at every level. The way people like Hale operate in plain sight because they've made themselves indispensable to people with power. I thought about Lena. About her determination, her courage, her absolute conviction that truth mattered more than safety. "So by coming after you," I said slowly, he was sending a message to everyone in that network, that even the most protected people aren't safe if they cross him. Exactly. But it didn't work. You're still alive. I'm still alive. And now his network is exposed, which makes him desperate, Marcus said. And desperate men do desperate things. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. My hand shook as I picked it up. A video began playing automatically. No sound, just grainy footage of a warehouse I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was from last night, around midnight. The camera panned slowly across the space. Empty, dark. Then it focused on something in the center, a chair, and tied to it, a woman. My blood turned to ice. She was young, maybe mid-20s. Dark hair, terrified eyes, a gag in her mouth, and she was very clearly, very terribly alive. The camera moved closer, close enough to see tears streaming down her face, close enough to see the bruises forming on her arms, close enough to see the photo taped to her chest. It was a picture of me. The video ended. A text appeared. "You have something I want. The flash drive files, all of them, every copy, every backup. You deliver them to me personally, or she dies. You have until noon. Come alone. Tell Vincent or the police, and I'll know. The address will be sent at 11:45. Don't be late." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at that frozen image of a terrified woman who was going to die because of me. Vincent took the phone from my shaking hands, watched the video with an expression that went from concerned to murderous in the space of seconds. "No," he said flatly. "Absolutely not. Vincent, this is a trap, obviously. He knows we have security, knows I won't let you walk into a situation like this. So he's banking on you going rogue, on you deciding that you can't let an innocent person die." "I can't." I stood abruptly, pacing. "Did you see her? She's terrified. She's not your responsibility." The words were harsh, true, maybe, but harsh. "How can you say that?" I demanded. "But how can you just—" "Because I've seen this play before," Vincent interrupted, his voice hard. "Hale takes a hostage, makes demands. You go to meet him. And the second you're in his control, the hostage dies anyway, and he has leverage over me. It's basic strategy. So what? We just let her die. We find her. We send my people. We handle this the right way. There isn't time. He said noon. That's less than 6 hours. Then we work fast." Marcus was already on his phone, barking orders. Vincent pulled out his laptop, pulling up maps and files and information I couldn't process fast enough. And I stood there watching them plan and strategize and treat this like a chess game, when somewhere in this city a woman was tied to a chair, waiting to die, because I'd given a stranger my umbrella. "I'm going," I said quietly. Vincent looked up sharply. "No, I'm going," I repeated, louder this time. "You can try to stop me. You can lock me in this apartment. You can post guards and make threats and do whatever you think you need to do. But the second I get an opening, I'm going. Because I am not letting another person die because of choices I made. Raina, my sister died because I didn't help her when she asked, because I chose safety over courage. I've lived with that for 5 years. I'm not doing it again. I can't." The apartment went silent. Marcus had stopped talking on the phone. Vincent had gone very still, his expression unreadable. "If you go," he said finally, his voice carefully controlled, "you die. That's not drama. That's not me being overprotective. That's tactical reality. Hale wants you dead. This is just him trying to do it in a way that hurts me first. Maybe, probably. But that woman in the video, she's real. Her fear is real. And I'm the only one who can potentially save her. By sacrificing yourself, if that's what it takes." Vincent stood across to me. His hands came up to frame my face, his touch gentle despite the fury I could see in his eyes. "I didn't survive being shot and beaten and left for dead so I could watch you walk into a trap that will kill you," he said quietly. "I didn't spend 5 years hunting the man who killed your sister so I could lose you to him now. I didn't—" his voice cracked. "I didn't fall in love with you so I could watch you die trying to be brave. Then come with me," I said. "Break his rules. Bring your people. Do what you do. But don't ask me to be the kind of person who lets innocent people die because saving them is dangerous. That's not fair." "No, it's not, but it's true." Vincent's thumb brushed my cheekbone. His ruined eye caught the morning light, making it look silver and strange and somehow beautiful. "If I do this," he said finally, "if I help you walk into this trap, we do it my way. My plan, my timeline. You follow every instruction I give without question or argument. Can you do that?" "Yes." "I mean it, Raina. This isn't negotiable. You want to save her? Fine. We'll try. But you don't get to improvise. You don't get to make heroic last-minute decisions. You do exactly what I tell you, exactly when I tell you, because the second you deviate, you die. And I can't—" He stopped, closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "I know I don't have the right to say that. I know we've only known each other days, not years. I know you're still figuring out if you can trust me, but I can't lose you. So if we're doing this, You follow my lead. Promise me. I'd never seen him like this. Vulnerable, afraid, human in a way that contradicted everything dangerous and controlled about him. I promise, I said. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, and tasting like fear, and something that felt like goodbye, even though we were supposedly planning for survival. When he pulled back, he was Vincent Moretti again, cold, calculating, dangerous. Marcus, he said, his voice sharp. Get everyone. I want teams at every location Hale owns. I want surveillance on every approach. I want snipers, extraction teams, and every favor we're owed called in. We have 5.5 hours to find that warehouse and plan an assault that doesn't get everyone killed. Yes, sir? And Marcus? If this goes wrong, if Raina dies because I made the wrong call, you make sure Hale doesn't survive the day. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. You end him. Understood? Marcus nodded once. The promise was clear. If I died, so would Marcus Hale. Violently. Vincent turned back to me. You need to eat. Rest. Prepare mentally for what's coming. Because it's going to be bad. Raina. Even if everything goes according to plan, it's going to be worse than anything you've seen so far. I know. Do you? Because there's knowing theoretically and knowing practically. And I need you to understand that when you walk into that warehouse, you're walking into a situation where I might have to make choices you won't like, where people might die, where the line between hero and villain gets so blurred you can't tell the difference anymore. I thought about that, about moral relativism and the trolley problem and all the ways philosophy broke down when faced with real violence, real fear, real stakes. I understand, I said finally. And I'm still going. Then we'd better get to work. The next 5 hours were the longest of my life. Vincent's people descended on my apartment, tech experts and strategists and men with weapons who treated violence like other people treated paperwork. They transformed my living room into a command center, my walls covered with maps and photos and information I only partially understood. Marcus Hale owned or had access to 47 properties in the Chicago area. They eliminated most of them quickly. Too public, too monitored, wrong layout. That left 8 possibles. Vincent sent teams to each one. Surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for signs of recent activity. By 10 a.m., they'd narrowed it to 3. By 11, they'd found her. Southside, Marcus reported. Old meatpacking plant. Hale bought it 2 years ago through a shell company. It's been sitting empty, but there's fresh tire tracks, recent activity, and he pulled up thermal imaging on his laptop. At least 6 heat signatures inside, one in the center of the main floor, stationary, probably the hostage. How many exits? Vincent asked. 4. We can cover them all. Guards? At least 2 visible. Probably more inside. Vincent studied the images with an intensity that made the air feel thin. I watched him work, this man who'd spent his entire adult life planning violence, now planning mine. Raina goes in the front, he said finally. Visible. Expected, she'll have a wire. Micro camera, we'll see and hear everything. And when Hale makes his move? Marcus asked. We're already inside, ceiling access here. Vincent pointed to a spot on the blueprint. Gives us a clear view of the main floor, sniper position. When I give the signal, we extract Raina and the hostage simultaneously. What's the signal? Vincent looked at me. And when you have visual confirmation of both Hale and the hostage, when you're certain he's committed, that's when you say, he thought for a moment. Say, I understand now. That's the trigger. Everything happens fast after that. You drop. My people move. And if we did this right, everyone except Hale's people walks out alive. And if you didn't do it right? I asked. Then I carry you out myself, Vincent said simply. One way or another. At 11:30, my phone buzzed. The address, just as Hale had promised. It matched the warehouse they'd found. He's confident, Marcus observed. Sending you to a location we probably already identified. Or he wants us there, Vincent countered. Wants this confrontation. Has something planned we haven't anticipated. So what do we do? Vincent looked at me. His expression was unreadable. We improvise, he said. And we trust each other. The warehouse looked like every crime scene in every movie I'd ever watched. industrial, isolated, windows too high to see through, the kind of place where screaming wouldn't matter because no one was close enough to hear. I pulled up in the car Vincent had given me weeks ago. It felt like years, like I'd been a different person before I'd met him. Smaller, safer, more innocent. Vincent was in my ear, his voice calm and steady through the nearly invisible earpiece they'd fitted me with. I see you. You're doing great. Just walk to the front entrance. Normal pace. Don't look around for my people. Don't give away that you know we're here. I got out of the car. My legs felt like water. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Breathe, Vincent said quietly. In for 4, out for 4. You've got this. I breathed, walked, reached the door. It opened before I could knock. A man I didn't recognize, big, armed. He gestured for me to enter. Inside, the warehouse was exactly as I'd seen in the thermal imaging. One massive room, concrete floors, exposed beams, and in the center, under a single hanging light, a woman tied to a chair. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes widened, hope and terror mixing in equal measure. Rena Brennan. Marcus Hale's voice echoed from somewhere I couldn't see. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. He emerged from the shadows, older than I'd expected, maybe mid-50s, expensive suit, silver hair. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a killer. Where are the files? He asked pleasantly. Let her go first. That's not how this works. Then we don't have a deal. Hale smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You're braver than your sister. She at least had the sense to be afraid. Rage flooded through me, hot and clarifying. Don't talk about her. Why not? She was going to destroy everything I built, just like you are, just like Vincent Moretti has been trying to do for years. You're all the same, thinking you can stand up to power and win, thinking truth matters more than survival. It does, I said. Then you're going to die believing that, just like she did. In my ear, Vincent's voice. Steady, don't engage. Just confirm he's there and wait for my signal. But I couldn't help it. 5 years of grief and rage and guilt were bubbling up. And this man who'd killed my sister, was standing in front of me smiling. You ran her off the road, I said. You murdered her, and you've spent 5 years covering it up. I eliminated a problem, Hale corrected. Nothing personal, just business. She had information that would have hurt important people, people who pay me very well to make problems disappear. And now you're the problem. You and Moretti and everyone who thinks exposing corruption will somehow change things. It won't. The system is designed to protect people like me. Always has been, always will be. He walked closer. I forced myself not to step back. But I'm a reasonable man. He continued. Give me the files. All of them. Every copy. And I'll let you both walk out. He gestured to the hostage. And you disappear. Change your name. Leave Chicago, and I forget you exist. I don't believe you. Smart girl. You're right not to. But here's the thing. I don't actually need the files. They're already out there. Already in the hands of journalists and federal agents and people who'll make sure my network burns. So this isn't about the evidence. This is about making a point. What point? That actions have consequences. That choosing to stand against power has a price. That heroes die bloody and unmourned while people like me keep operating because we understand how the world really works. He pulled out a gun. Not pointed at me, just visible. A promise. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch me kill her. Then you're going to watch me call Vincent Moretti and tell him I have you. And then you're going to watch him make the choice. Does he come save you and abandon his empire? Or does he choose power and let you die? Either way, I win. Either way, I prove that love is just another weakness. Another leverage point. Another way to make untouchable men touchable. In my ear, Rena. Signal. Now. But I couldn't. Because Hale was right. This was never about the files. This was about proving that caring about people made you vulnerable, made you weak, made you lose. And I was about to prove him right. I understand now, I said clearly. Everything happened at once. The ceiling exploded, Vincent's people dropping through pre-cut access points, gunfire, shouting, chaos. I dropped like Vincent had told me to, hit the concrete hard enough to knock the wind out of me. Above me, the hostage screamed. Her chair tipped, fell. I rolled, scrambled toward her, hands shaking as I tried to untie the ropes binding her. More gunfire, closer this time. Then Vincent was there, pulling me up, shoving me toward Marcus, who'd appeared from somewhere, covering our escape. "Go!" Vincent shouted. "Get her out!" Marcus grabbed my arm, started pulling me toward an exit I couldn't see through the smoke and chaos. I looked back, Vincent and Hale, facing each other, both armed, both committed. "Vincent!" I screamed. He didn't look at me, didn't take his eyes off Hale. "Go," he said again, quieter this time. "Final." Marcus dragged me through the warehouse, through a door, into daylight that felt wrong and too bright. Behind us, a single gunshot. Then silence. I tried to turn back, to run to him, to know. But Marcus held me tight, his voice urgent in my ear. He said to get you out. That's what I'm doing. He said no matter what. He made me promise. The last thing I saw before Marcus shoved me into a waiting car was smoke pouring from the warehouse doors, and the terrible, absolute silence of aftermath. They didn't tell me he was alive for 3 hours. 3 hours of sitting in a federal safe house with Marcus pacing like a caged animal and agents with sympathetic expressions who wouldn't meet my eyes. 3 hours of replaying that single gunshot in my mind, trying to decode its meaning from memory, the caliber, the direction, the terrible silence that followed. 3 hours of understanding, with crystalline clarity, what it felt like to lose someone before you'd figured out how to keep them. When Marcus's phone finally rang, I watched his face transform from grim resignation to something I couldn't name. Relief mixed with disbelief, mixed with an emotion so raw it hurt to witness. "He's alive," he said, and his voice cracked on the second word. "He's alive and he's asking for you." They took me to Northwestern Memorial. Not the emergency room, a private floor where Vincent's money and influence had created space that operated outside normal hospital protocols. Guards at the elevator. More guards at the hallway entrance. A fortress built around one man's survival. Marcus led me to a room at the end of the corridor, paused with his hand on the door. "He's been shot," he said quietly. "Shoulder, clean through. He's had surgery. He's stable, but he looks—" Marcus stopped, started again. "He looks worse than he is. Try to remember that." I nodded. Didn't trust my voice. Inside, the room was dim. Monitors beeped steadily, and in the bed, connected to more tubes and wires than seemed necessary, was Vincent. Marcus was right. He looked terrible, pale under the fluorescent lights, bruises blooming across his face, his left arm in a sling, bandages visible beneath the hospital gown, but his eyes were open, alert, and when he saw me, something in his expression softened. "You're okay?" he said. Not a question. A confirmation. Like he'd been holding his breath until he could verify it himself. "I'm okay," I agreed, crossing to the bed. My legs felt unsteady. "You got shot. I've been shot before." "That doesn't make it better." "No," Vincent agreed. "It doesn't." I sat in the chair someone had positioned beside the bed. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Two people who'd survived something that should have killed us, trying to figure out what came next. "Hale?" I asked finally. "Dead." Vincent's voice was flat. "Federal agents arrived just after the shooting started. He tried to use you as leverage, pointed his gun at where he thought you were. I didn't give him the chance to find out he was wrong. You killed him." "Yes." No justification, no explanation, just acknowledgement. "The hostage?" I asked. "Safe, traumatized, but physically unharmed. She's with victim services. They're taking care of her." "And your people?" "2 injuries, non-critical. Everyone else walked out." He shifted slightly, winced. "We were lucky. It could have been much worse. Because I followed your plan. Because you trusted me." Vincent's good hand reached for mine. His grip was weak but steady. "When you said the signal, when you dropped without hesitation, you gave my people the opening they needed. If you'd tried to be heroic, tried to save the hostage yourself, we'd both be dead." I thought about that, about trust and control and the difference between surrendering agency and choosing collaboration. "I almost didn't," I admitted. When Hale was talking about my sister, about how heroes die unmourned, I almost broke. Almost did something stupid. But you didn't. Because you were in my ear. Because I knew you had a plan. Because I believed you when you said we'd get out. Vincent's thumb brushed across my knuckles. The gesture was becoming familiar. Comforting in a way I hadn't expected. The DA wants to talk to you, he said after a moment. But about everything. Your sister's investigation, the flash drive, what Hale said in the warehouse. They're building a case against his entire network. Dozens of people, maybe more. City officials, developers, people who thought they were untouchable. Because Lena was brave enough to investigate them. Because your sister refused to look away from injustice. And because you refused to let her death be meaningless. My throat felt tight. 5 years of grief suddenly pressing against my chest with a weight that made breathing difficult. I wish she could see this, I whispered. Wish she could know that her work mattered. That people will be held accountable. That she didn't die for nothing. She knows, Vincent said quietly. Wherever she is, she knows. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to think there was some cosmic justice. Some universal ledger where good deeds were recorded and remembered. But mostly I just felt exhausted. Emptied out. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that putting it down left me uncertain how to stand. What happens now? I asked. Now? Vincent considered this. Now you testify. Tell the truth about everything. Your sister, the investigation, what happened. The feds will offer you protection if you need it. Witness security, new identity. The whole program. Do I need it? Hale's network is collapsing, but networks have branches. People who might want revenge, might see you as a loose end. He paused. I can't promise you'll be completely safe, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep you that way. And what about you? What about me? The DA. They have evidence about your business, your organization, things that came out during the investigation. Vincent was quiet. Then he said, I've been offered a deal. Cooperation in exchange for immunity on certain charges. They want information about Hale's network, who he worked with, where money flowed, which officials were compromised. I can give them that. At what cost? My business? Or at least the parts of it that operated in gray areas? The parts your sister would have wanted exposed? He met my eyes directly. I'm getting out, Raina. Not because I'm being forced to, because I want to. Because the man I was, the man who refused to help your sister, that's not who I want to be anymore. What will you do instead? I don't know yet. Something legitimate. Something that doesn't require looking over my shoulder every day. Something that doesn't... He stopped. Started again. Something that doesn't make you ashamed to know me. The words hit harder than I expected. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was worried about my opinion, my judgment, my capacity to accept him. I'm not ashamed, I said quietly. Confused, maybe, still processing, still figuring out how to reconcile the man who saves me with the man who operates outside the law, but not ashamed. You should be. Maybe, but I'm not. Vincent's expression was unreadable. Then he said, I need to tell you something. About that night. The night you found me. Okay. I wasn't supposed to be there. Wasn't supposed to be alone. I had a meeting, someone claiming to have information about Hale. Someone who said they could help me bring him down. It was a setup, an ambush. They shot me, beat me, left me to bleed out in an alley. I know, you told me. What I didn't tell you is that I was ready to die. I'd spent 5 years obsessing over your sister's case, over my failure to help her, over the guilt that ate at me every time I thought about how different things might have been if I'd just said yes when she asked. And when I was lying there in that alley, bleeding, I thought, this is justice. This is what I deserve. His grip on my hand tightened. And then you appeared. This stranger with an umbrella who looked at me like I was worth saving, who didn't see a criminal or a victim or a problem to solve, just someone who needed help. And you gave it. No questions. No hesitation. Just kindness. Pure, uncomplicated kindness. It was just an umbrella, Vincent. No, he said firmly. It was more than that. It was proof that people like you exist in the world. People who choose compassion over self-preservation, who risk themselves for strangers, who believe that everyone deserves shelter, even men bleeding in alleys who probably earned their wounds. I didn't know who you were. That's exactly my point. You didn't know, didn't care. You just saw someone who needed help and provided it. That's, his voice roughened. That's extraordinary. And it's the reason I'm lying in this hospital bed instead of a morgue. The reason I got a second chance to make things right. The reason I met you. I didn't know what to say to that. How to respond to someone attributing their entire survival, their redemption arc, to a moment of impulse I'd barely thought about. I'm not extraordinary, I said finally. I'm just someone who had an umbrella and saw someone who needed it more. That's what makes you extraordinary, Vincent replied. You don't see it. Don't recognize how rare that kind of instinct is. How many people would have walked past? How many did walk past before you stopped? Vincent, let me finish, please. He took a careful breath. I'm going to testify against Hale's network. I'm going to cooperate with the DA. I'm going to use everything I know to make sure everyone involved in your sister's death faces consequences. And then I'm going to step away. From my business. From this life. From everything that made me the kind of man who could fail someone who needed help. You don't have to do that for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I want to be someone different. Someone better. Someone who deserves... He stopped. Looked away. Someone who might deserve a second chance with a woman who gave shelter to a stranger. My heart was beating too fast. This felt like a precipice, like standing at the edge of something I couldn't see the bottom of. What are you asking? I said quietly. Vincent looked back at me. His ruined eye and his whole one both focused on my face with an intensity that made my skin feel warm. I'm asking if you'd be willing to wait, he said. To give me time to become the kind of man you could choose, to build a life that's honest and safe and doesn't require armed guards and secret warehouses, to prove that what I feel for you isn't just gratitude or obligation or the intensity of shared trauma. How long? 6 months? Maybe a year? However long it takes to untangle everything, to testify, to restructure, to figure out who Vincent Moretti is when he's not running an empire built on moral compromise. And if after all that, you decide you don't like who you've become, then I'll have become someone better anyway. That's worth something. I thought about it, about time and transformation and the difference between who we are and who we want to be. I'm going back to work, I said. At the gallery, Gerald called. Said my job is waiting when I'm ready. Said he understands if I need time, but he hopes I'll come back. That's good. I'm also going to testify, tell them everything. Not just about Hale, but about Lena, about who she was, what she believed, why her work mattered. I want people to know her story, to understand what she risked. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. I squeezed his hand gently, and I'm going to take some time too, to process everything, to figure out who I am after all this, to decide what I want instead of just reacting to what's happening around me. That's wise. But Vincent? I waited until he met my eyes. I'm not saying no. I'm saying not yet. I'm saying let's both figure out who we are separately before we try to figure out who we could be together. Can you accept that? For a long moment, Vincent just looked at me. Then, slowly, carefully, he smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, lighter, less burdened by the weight of choices and consequences. I can accept that, he said. I can accept not yet. 3 months later, I stood in the Ashland Gallery during a private opening, watching collectors examine the new exhibition I'd curated. Abstract pieces by emerging artists, all women, all exploring themes of transformation and resilience. Gerald was pleased, sales were strong, and I felt, for the first time in years, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, though I recognized it immediately. There's someone outside who'd like to speak with you. If you have time. I smiled. Excused myself. Walked to the gallery's front entrance. Vincent was leaning against a car I didn't recognize. Not the expensive ones from before. Something practical. Normal. He wore jeans and a sweater. No sunglasses, even though the autumn sun was bright. His scars visible to anyone who looked. He saw me and straightened, suddenly uncertain in a way I'd never seen him. Hi, he said. Hi. I know we said 6 months. It's only been 3, but He stopped. Started again. I wanted you to know. The testimony is done. The DA has everything they need. Hale's network is being dismantled. At least 17 indictments so far, including 2 city council members and the deputy mayor. That's good. It's more than good, it's justice. For Lena, for everyone Hale hurt. He paused. And my business, the parts of it that operated outside the law, that's done too. Dissolved. Assets liquidated. I kept enough to live comfortably. Gave the rest to my people as severance. So who are you now? I asked. Without the empire? Without the power? I don't know yet, Vincent admitted. I'm figuring it out. I bought a building, near Wicker Park, thinking about turning it into a community center. Space for artists, small businesses, people who need affordable rent, and someone willing to take a chance on them. I couldn't find the right word. That's wonderful. It's selfish, actually. I need something to do, some way to feel useful. And I keep thinking about what you said, about how Lena fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves, how that mattered, how that was he gestured vaguely, worth everything. I want to try that, in my own way. We stood there on the sidewalk, people flowing around us, the city moving at its usual pace while we existed in a bubble of our own making. Can I ask you something? Vincent said. Anything. Do you still think about that night? The umbrella? Every day, I admitted. I think about how random it was, how easily I could have walked past, how one small choice changed everything. Do you regret it? I considered the question, thought about everything that had followed, the danger, the fear, the grief reopened and examined, but also the truth discovered, the justice served, the person I'd become through surviving it all. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. It was the right thing to do. Even knowing everything that came after, I'd still stop, still offer shelter, still choose kindness. Vincent's expression did something complicated, relief and wonder and something that looked like love, though neither of us had said the word yet. I brought you something, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. Something smaller, flatter. Inside was a necklace, simple silver chain, and hanging from it, a tiny umbrella charm. Delicate and beautiful and so perfectly chosen, it made my throat tight. So you don't forget, Vincent said quietly, that kindness matters, that small gestures have consequences, that you saved someone's life by being exactly who you are. I let him fasten it around my neck. His hands were steady, gentle. When he finished, his fingers lingered on my collarbone for just a moment. 3 more months, he said. That was our agreement. I'm going to honor it. I'm going to give you space and time and room to be certain. But I need you to know I'm already certain. About you. About us. About wanting to build something real with someone extraordinary. Vincent, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. So when you're ready, if you're ready, you'll understand that I've been waiting. That I'll keep waiting. That some people are worth any amount of patience. He stepped back. Created distance, even though I could see it cost him. I should go. Let you get back to your opening, but he smiled. That same transformative smile. I'm proud of you. The exhibition, the testimony, everything you've done to honor your sister. She'd be proud too. He turned to leave. Vincent, I called. He looked back. The building, the community center. I know some artists who might be interested in space. And I took a breath. I'd like to help. If you want curating, connecting people, whatever you need. His smile widened. I'd like that. Very much. It's not a commitment, I said quickly. Just collaboration, professional, of course, professional. But we both knew it wasn't. Not really. It was a door opening, a possibility acknowledged, a future being built from shared values instead of shared trauma. He left. I watched him walk to his car, get in, drive away like a normal person living a normal life. I touched the umbrella charm at my throat, felt its weight, its promise. Inside the gallery, people waited, art and wine and conversation, my life, continuing forward, shaped by grief and choice and the unexpected ways kindness creates connection. But I also felt something else, something that hadn't been there before that rainy night when I'd stopped for a stranger. Hope. Not the naive kind that believes everything works out, but the earned kind. The kind that comes from surviving darkness and choosing to believe in light anyway. The kind that says transformation is possible, that people can change, that love might look different than you expected, but can still be real. I went back inside, back to my exhibition, back to the life I was building from the broken pieces of the one I'd lost. But on my skin, silver against my collarbone, an umbrella charm reminded me. Sometimes the smallest gestures cast the longest shadows. Sometimes kindness to strangers becomes the architecture of freedom. Sometimes you save someone's life without meaning to. And sometimes, rarely, unexpectedly, miraculously, they save yours right back. 6 months after the gallery opening, on a morning when Chicago's winter had finally gentled into spring, I opened my apartment door to find Vincent standing in the hallway. No guards, no urgency, just him, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking nervous in a way that made my heart skip. "It's been 6 months," he said. "I know. I've been counting." "So have I. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. Let him enter the space that had been my sanctuary through everything. He'd never been here since that night, had kept his distance, given me room to breathe and heal and become someone who could choose instead of just survive. We sat on my couch, the same one where we'd fallen asleep talking, where everything had begun and paused and waited. "I bought the building next to the community center," Vincent said. "I'm converting it into apartments. Affordable housing for artists and small business owners, people who make the city interesting but can't afford to live in it anymore. That's ambitious. I learned from the best." He looked at me. "Your sister. The way she fought for people. I'm trying to honor that, in my own way. She'd like that." "I hope so." He set his coffee down, turned to face me fully. "Raina, these last 6 months, I've been working on becoming someone different, someone better. But I need you to know something." "What?" "I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. There's still darkness in me. Still capacity for violence if someone I care about is threatened. Still instincts that come from years of living in a world where trust was weakness. I can't erase that. Can't pretend it doesn't exist. I know. But I can choose every day to be someone who uses that darkness in service of light, who protects without controlling, who loves without consuming, who..." His voice caught. "Who deserves you." I reached for his hand, the gesture that had become our language. "You keep talking about deserving," I said quietly, "like there's some cosmic score that determines who gets happiness. But that's not how it works. We don't earn love through suffering or good deeds or transformation. We just choose it. We choose to trust, to risk, to believe that broken people can build beautiful things together." "Is that what you want?" Vincent asked. "To build something with me?" I thought about it. About 6 months of therapy and testimony and learning to carry grief without letting it carry me. About late nights curating exhibitions and early mornings volunteering at Vincent's community center. About slow transformation, both his and mine, from people defined by trauma into people defined by choice. Yes, I said. But on one condition. Anything. We keep choosing, every day. Not because we're obligated or because we survived something together or because we're afraid of being alone, but because we actively want this. Want each other. Want to build something honest and complicated and real. Vincent smiled. That smile that transformed him. "I can do that," he said. "I want to do that." He leaned forward, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. The kiss was different from the desperate ones in the courthouse. Different from the goodbye one before the warehouse. This one was soft, searching, a question and an answer all at once. When we pulled apart, I said, "I'm still going to question your decisions sometimes. Still going to fight for autonomy. Still going to be stubborn and independent and occasionally reckless." "Good," Vincent said. "I'm counting on it. And you're still going to be overprotective and strategic and probably make choices that drive me crazy." "Absolutely. But we'll talk about it. Work through it. Learn how to be partners instead of protector and protected." "Partners?" Vincent repeated. He liked the word. I could see it in his expression. "Yes, that's exactly what I want." Outside, spring sunlight filtered through my windows. Chicago waking up to another day of possibility and danger and beauty, mixed together in ways you couldn't separate even if you tried. And inside, two people who'd found each other in rain and darkness learned what it meant to choose each other in light. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. It wasn't anything like the fairy tales promised, but it was real and honest, and built on a foundation of kindness that had saved two lives and transformed two souls. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. The umbrella charm Rena wears reminds her, and us, that small gestures of humanity can change everything. That shelter offered to a stranger can become the foundation of transformation. That sometimes saving someone else's life is how we save our own. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.